Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning, welcome to Thursday. It's the 22nd of January. I'm going to start by saying I apologise for the voice. The man flu has gotten hold of me, but as you know, no chance of a day off. I was brought up by a woman who went, "Day off? I had pneumonia in the Second World War. Get to work, you lazy gits." 6:03. Welcome to Thursday and welcome to Talk Breakfast, where the nation comes to have its say on the news of the day. Working Brits, alarm clock Brits, we welcome you to the show as ever. And very quickly, if you do want to be on, 0344 499 1000. Who could get the fastest voice note into Christian this morning? We're being inundated as the days go by. Your text message is always welcome. 87222 in a tick. Our Thursday paper reviewer, Charlie Rowley, who's now known as something for the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Hey! Those were the days. But you're waking up to the news that Donald Trump, of course, last night dropped his threat to invade Greenland and impose tariffs on the UK after reaching, in his words, a future framework for Greenland and the entire Arctic region. Now, some of the press are going, he U-turned. Others are going, he got exactly what he wanted. Christian nailed it for me this morning. If you read Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, it's all about what I said the other day. He aims to shock because he knows what he wants to get, and in the end they all go, oh, so he said tariffs, invasion, and he's got increased sovereignty over larger military bases in Greenland, which is what he wants as a threat to China and Russia. So have Europe fallen into his hands? Certainly gets it done. 0344 499 1000. Keir Starmer. Brilliant. He's to make his first visit to China in the next few weeks to meet President Xi Jinping. Jinping, whatever. Anyway, I can't say it. Anyway, he's going to China having said yes to that Chinese embassy, which is still causing such a furore. I have to say, they're calling it Kowtow Keir. That massive embassy in London, it's not going out of the newspapers. People are really concerned, from our security services downwards, all sorts of politicians from across the divide. I bet you the next thing that Trump will wade in on is this super embassy. I don't believe it will ever be built. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. There's two stories today that really, really infuriate us, and I'd love your take on them nice and early. 1 in 4 school starters are still in nappies because parents don't think toilet training is their job. Growing numbers of kids are not ready for school. Some pupils trying to swipe on books as if they're phones and iPads. And, you know, I'll be really honest, education is the most important thing, and maybe what I'm going to say isn't going to be very popular. What the hell's happened to parenting in the United Kingdom? Why we, you know, we all sit here and we say, we don't want state involvement. Well, take bloody responsibility. If you can't potty train your child, if you can't have your child with the basic rudimentary things by the time it goes to school, surely it's fair enough to say you're failing as a parent. But don't get me on the whole thing, because too many people have too many kids. And before people phone up and go, you've got 6, yeah. And I pay for all of mine, and I do my damnedest to make them good kids. 0344 499 1000. Big news as well, this other bill, this other story I want to talk about. We sent Samara Gill down to Westminster after Labour tabled an amendment to the Troubles Bill. I cannot sit here and not rant about this. Men and women who served in our armed forces years ago put their lives on the line. Under this government could be prosecuted from up to 30 years ago. So our veterans, right? Thanks for everything. You're probably homeless because an illegal migrant's in a hotel, and we're probably going to sue you and put you in jail for what might have happened. Absolutely outrageous. Love to know what you think of that. 0344 499 1000. Ring Rob. Now listen, Robert Jenrick defected last week and loads of people have spoken to him, but nobody has been able to get him to come in and take an hour of calls. That's what you will get from 9 o'clock this morning. You can ring Robert Jenrick and ask him anything about his defection, about reform, about how it was done, how it was yesterday in the Commons when he stood up and actually asked a very impressive question. We'll have Rob here from 9 o'clock. You can ring Rob. And just on a slightly lighter note, half of dogs in England are now overweight. Really? Have you got a fat pooch? What did I say there? Pooch. What is it? Fat?
A pooch.
I nearly said the wrong word.
Yes.
Is your dog dumpy? Is your hound humpy? What do you feed your dog? There's a story today saying that people feed their dogs fish and chips. Have you got a dog, Charlie Rowley?
I haven't, no, but I'm in the market. I was looking at getting one.
You're in the market for everything, to be honest, aren't you?
Well, I'm a bit lonely. so I thought a nice pup, you know, it keeps you company, you know, they love you unconditionally, and I think, you know...
failed miserably to find anybody that's human.
Exactly.
So you're going for the pup. If you've got a dog, what strange things do you feed your dog? 0344 499 1000 and text to 87222. Let's get going. Charlie Rowley, a very good morning. Something for the weekend.
Something for the weekend on a Thursday.
Oh, I know.
Started early.
Let's start with Donald Trump. It's in every single newspaper, front page of the Times. Trump hails, this is interesting, Greenland deal for all NATO nations. Now, you will have followed this explosion over the last few days. I'm going to invade. I'm going to impose tariffs. This is massively important. Only the United States of America is important in terms of security. I absolutely accept, from his point of view, that when he came to power, there seemed to be an imbalance between who paid in and who made the most efforts for NATO, which was the United States and others. And so I understand it. But this, to me, and I'm not blowing smoke up his backside because so much of what he says and does annoys me. This is classic Donald Trump deal-making. I'm going to threaten you, you're all going to go, oh my God, and I'm going to get what I want. That's how I see it. Do you see it differently or not?
No, I don't. I think the threat, however, of taking over Greenland at some stage, potentially, couldn't be taken off the table. Now, whether that's a complete takeover of the bit of land or whether it would just have been what is going to happen without the agreement, which is just sending more troops to some of the army bases that they've got there.
But he's got sovereignty over that now. He's got sovereignty over the armed bases, so that's a tick for him.
Absolutely. But you're absolutely right. He's exposed what we all bemoan at times, which are the structures of, you know, international diplomacy, the constant, you know, jaw as opposed to not war in this case, but just action.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's identified a problem. He's a deal maker at the end of the day. That's all he's been about. style. His modus operandi is get the deal done.
I completely agree. And it's like the Chagos thing. On Monday, everybody was going, well, you didn't say that before, and I'm convinced that was in the back pocket. But I read a lot overnight that many, many officials of all European countries saying, we are tired of his antics. It's up, it's down, we don't know where he's going. But you read into that, no, because the way you've done diplomacy for years is you've always known what's going to happen, and you all have completely loads of meetings and don't get anywhere. Love him or loathe him, he gets stuff done. Let me just play a clip. This is him saying that the concept of the deal has been done. DT, take it away.
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland, and it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st?
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal...
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line.
So whether you think he's a deal maker or he's a U-turn, and let us know, 87222, and let's give some credit. I don't want to, but I'm going to have to. Starmer at PMQs, not in Davos, right, was probably the most forceful I've ever seen him. This was Starmer yesterday saying, I will not yield.
President Trump deployed words on Chagos yesterday that were different to his previous words of welcome and support when I met him in the White House. He deployed those words yesterday for the express purpose of putting pressure on me and Britain in relation to my values and principles on the future of Greenland. Mr. Speaker, he wants me to yield on my position, and I'm not going to do so.
So, credit where credit's due, probably the strongest I've heard, Starmer, but didn't have the balls to go to Davos and say it to the leader of the free world's head, right, to his face. That's quite important. Let's talk about the special relationship. Is it over?
No, of course not. If anything, I think it'll probably be strengthened, actually, because, you know, Donald Trump, as an individual, we've talked about him wanting to get to a deal or whatever it is that he's focused on, but he also respects people. You know, that's why he has this interesting, which I think is an interesting relationship with President Macron, who at times has flexed his muscles. I'm not a huge fan of the man myself, but, you know...
I like Giorgia Meloni. Every time you see a picture of her looking at Macron, I think she's the greatest thing in the world, Giorgia Meloni. She absolutely loathes the ground he walks on.
Exactly. But she even stood up to Trump in a phone call and said, look, EU, there might be some miscommunication.
Don't you think he admires... I said this yesterday.
Exactly.
Does he not admire a bit of strength?
Exactly. If you're just a patsy, you'll be a pushover, and he'll, you know, stroke your ego just to get you on board, but he'll know ultimately you'll be fine. So all of the other bits that were going on in his mind, where he probably wanted obviously the state visits to the UK, the idea of having Peter Mandelson back in the day as the ambassador.
I saw him.
Fine.
I saw him.
Oh, did you?
In reception.
Oh, of this build?
Yes.
Oh,
and he wasn't taking a leak.
The former ambassador?
03444 999 1000. What do you make of it? Is Donald Trump the master deal maker who's got exactly what he wants in Greenland? Or did Keir Starmer and Europe stand up to him and he did a U-turn? We'd love to know. Good morning to Margaret. Morning, JK, and the lovely Charlie. Here we bleed and go. How long do we have to put up with this weak Eustace PM? Yesterday, he was out of his depth and pathetic. That's her opinion. Mark's in Croydon. Morning, Jez. My girlfriend's a teacher, and every day she sees kids who lack the basics, but even worse, some have turned up with leftover McDonald's for lunch. My mum would cook me breakfast before school, pack a fresh lunch and not give me junk food. The people having kids are kids themselves. What hope do we have? This is this story, and I'm not going away from this. 1 in 4 school starters are still in nappies because parents don't think toilet training is their job. I think if you have a kid, it's your responsibility. I think it's an absolute disgrace. And listen, in another life, I spent a lot of time with feckless people who had kids quite simply to get benefits. And if people don't like that fact, it is a fact, OK? Many, many hard-working Brits, people listening to this right now, are out the door as early as all of us, right, to put food on the table, pay their bills. It's also part of it to educate your kids on the difference between right and wrong. Katie Heitner says, morning, Jezza. Poppy the Poppy the puppy is most certainly not a podgy pooch. She's a racing snake. Christine says, can you tell the gorgeous Charlie, here you are, ready to get a cock a poo? They are loving... What? Get a cock a poo?
Yes.
They're loving and fun, intelligent and charming, like Charlie.
Oh,
Christina, get a life. This is the story about dogs. Apparently half of dogs in the UK are fat. Are we allowed to say fat? Overweight, obese. They've got an obese gene. They're depressed because other dogs don't like to eat with them. What do you feed your pet? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Keir Starmer, the Chinese embassy. This flew the last couple of days. Finally, it was passed yesterday against Charlie, it seems. Almost every single person. The Mail, page 4. I mean, the security services said don't do it. Labour MPs said don't do it. And yet, kowtow Keir, it says here, to make first visit to China days after agreeing to new mega embassy. What's your take on this, pal?
I think we should not have gone ahead with it. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. The security services have said that they can't guarantee that there won't be breaches of national security. The embassy that's been proposed and been submitted several times and kicked into the long grass is very close to underground cables that carry highly sensitive data, particularly about our financial district and people's money. So, you know, the idea that they can tap into that and be able to sort of, you know, crash the UK economy, I think is alarming in itself, notwithstanding the fact that they had, as part of their plans, secret rooms, so we didn't know where they were, what they were going to be used for. But, you know, China has got us, I'm afraid to say, I think, over a bit of a barrel. You know, when the UK economy is doing terribly in comparison to what it should be doing, when you've got to go for growth, when you've got to achieve that growth, which this government said it's always been about, you've got to go to, cap in hand, to obviously the world's second biggest economy, China, to try and get a bit of national investment. But I can't understand why we're pursuing this strategy when China basically said to the Prime Minister, when it came to the Scunthorpe Steelworks, where they just sort of pulled out without notice, and said, basically, we all have to step in because we're not interested. And by the way, we'll only continue to fund it or help you a little bit if you give us the embassy. Now, that is not how international relations of someone that you want to be doing business with works. At least with Donald Trump, it's very plain, it's very open, it's very direct. None of this underhand nonsense.
I completely agree, and I'm probably going to alienate a few people. I'm just going to tell you how I always saw the Brexit thing, right? I always believed that we were under the control of Europe, and that if we came away, this was my opinion at the time, that it would free up businesses to be successful. We could prove to the world that our products were good and we could make business and growth like that. But we've got a government that stymies any sort of growth with taxes on small and medium businesses, huge tax increases on the individual. And so as a result, right, you're absolutely there, the economy flatlines, inflation up yesterday. So he's going cap in hand, whether it's to Europe or China. I've always believed, and maybe this is really old-fashioned, you know, this country, this once great country, is an island. I think there's enough good things, but we don't, and we're looking in the wrong direction. But from a security point of view, absolutely outrageous. Graham in Bushy says maybe there will soon be a canine version of Manjaro for fat dogs called Houndjaro. Very good. Neil Harrison. Donald Trump did back down, Jez, but he's a business genius. He gives you a hand, but it's really a backhand at the same time. Charlie and Jeremy, fat dogs. I can't believe we're doing this. Ozim Pooch and Charlie, cotton de tullers. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
No idea. Are smart, small, don't shed hair, and as cute as buttons. Shout out to mine Poppy. Have a great day. That's Mark in Selsby. Do you have a portly pooch, a lard-ass Labrador, or a chubby Chihuahua? Call Jez right now. Who made that up? Hi, my name is Chris from Poole. Do you think we will end up like China, Russia, North Korea, or do you think the British will fight back? We've gone from a chubby Chihuahua to are we going to go to war with China? This is the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. Can I bring you to another story that is also massive in the newspapers today? The story about veterans. Our own reporter Samara Gill went down to Westminster. We'll talk about that later. Labour tabling an amendment to the Troubles Bill. Can you just explain? Because, look, veterans betrayed in almost every paper, certainly here in the Mail, it's also in the Sun. Can you explain a little bit about this bill? Because it seems so unfair.
Yes, so there was a legacy bill that was put in by the Tories to effectively protect people that fought during those Troubles, you know, obviously on the island of Ireland. And those who fought and served and protected the UK when we were threatened by terrorists, IRA terrorists, and terrorist suspects that committed terrorist acts in this country, blew up Parliament to a degree. And you remember the Brighton bombing and things like that. You know, these people have been protected because of the legacy, because of the Good Friday Agreement. It's about putting, you know, those arms down, but protecting the soldiers that went after people that were effectively going to cause us harm. Now, some of their activity might have been
clandestine.
Exactly, and
it's sort of called war, isn't it? It's called, you know, save yourself before you get blown up.
Exactly, and it might have been.
And so the Tories, as the world changed, came up with a bill which said these people will not be prosecuted, and Labour has done back.
Exactly, just as if with the Good Friday Agreement, if you're releasing other people that wanted to cause us harm to de-escalate, you've got to protect the people that were also after, you know, was here to defend us. But the idea that people now feel it's okay to, you know, potentially in the future go and prosecute those people who put on that uniform that defended the United Kingdom and all of us here is something that I think, you know, it plays into the narrative of, well, reparations for all, whether it's, you know...
Let's get an opinion on this, because I'm sorry, I think this veteran thing is disgusting. I'd love to hear what you think of it. Matty, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. Matt from Warrington, ex-Welsh Guard. I served 2 years in Northern Ireland. I listened to the amendment on Peter's show last night. Lib Dems, Labour, have been instructed to vote for it. Why? Why are our politicians crucifying our veterans? I am so angry. I am so furious. None of them have ever carried a rifle. None of them have ever heard a bullet go off. Hey? None of them have ever heard a bomb. What's next? Afghan? Iraq? Hey? No shame on these people. Disgrace. Honestly, I'm so angry today. I hate it. I'm surprised they're not going for the Falklands, lads, while they're getting near the end of, you know, now they're on 60. This government, these woke politicians, haven't got a clue. Yeah, if it kicks off again, they'll want us to go out there so they can sleep safe at night and then prosecute us 20 years later. I have no faith in this government. Thank you.
Do you know what? The reason I wanted to play that, and Christian's dead right, it is disgusting. And in times of war or trouble or bombings or whatever, I'm sure there are many clandestine actions, but these are men and women. Let's just nail this at 6:20. Who put their lives on the line for our country. And we've got a government who thinks it would be a good idea to prosecute them. This is the same party that's gladly going to sit round the table with Jerry Adams and IRA leaders who blew to smithereens people's lives, their homes and their businesses for many, many years. I know all about this, you know, Good Friday Agreement and arguments on both sides, but let's be perfectly honest, this is British Army personnel. What's it going to do, on a serious note, for any future recruitment? Why in the name of God, Charlie Rowley, would anybody want to join the British Army, the British Navy, the British Air Force, in the thought that in 20 years' time, oh, look, the chair went back then, that was outrageous. In 20 years' time, you could be prosecuted. I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Totally. And you just wouldn't, would you? If that was a threat that you faced, having, you know, committed your life to the service, literally your life to serve, the idea that you could then be sort of prosecuted, and, you know, the treatment of veterans already, I mean, you talked about it right at the top, people still sleeping rough, people on the streets, you know, when hotel accommodation has gone to people that have come over on a small dinghy. But this is the same party, it seems to me, the Labour Party and the government, that were very happy for lawyers to win out the day when they prosecuted, just as Matt referenced in that voice note there, veterans that served in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, lawyers no end went after those troops, unnecessarily so.
Which the taxpayer paid the lawyers for.
Exactly, and that is just the type, I can see it now, and, you know, someone will complain, I'm sure, but, you know, the Lord Hermers of this world, the Attorney Generals who have sat round the table as a lefty lawyer that's defended some of the most indefensible people in this country, will be part of that network of lawyers who say we must go after, we must right these wrongs.
This is the number one story today for me. We can talk Trump, we can talk Chinese embassy. What are we doing to our bloody veterans? This is a government, by the way. Yesterday we had that story of Jennifer Melley, that nurse who has striven all her life to be a nurse, an amazing lady from East London, a transgender paedophile, so I'm going to keep saying this, a kiddie fiddler, convicted, comes to her hospital, is particularly offhand. She misgenders by mistake and calls him Mr. He calls her the N-word, and this poor cow has to spend 2 years fighting for her job, and thank God she won it. No Labour politician criticising that at all and allowing anti-veteran... But it is beyond me. And when people say, oh, you're very against the government, this is a disgrace to our veterans. If you are an ex-Army, Navy, Air Force personnel, men or women, we'd love to hear from you this morning. And don't forget, after 9, Mr. Jenrick's in town.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk. There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
different men. I'm just giving you a story. And do you know what she said to me? The only thing in my life that's free and fun is sex. Think about that. Think about how society has got to a point. People will tell you, well, I had a child because I get a flat. Forget all of that. I look at my kids and it's infuriating being a parent. I mean, it's infuriating. You know, but actually it's also the most inspiring and wonderful thing in the world. But it's not easy, and I do not in any way think it is parents' right to say, oh, the school will do that or the state will do that. If you have a bloody child, then you be the parent to that child.
Totally. And look, schools have got to get tough as well, I think. Look, if you're receiving a child at the school gates that clearly can't do the most basic of things like cleaning their teeth, you'd send them home. Or I'm afraid you'll have to call social services, because that is a dereliction of duty as a parent to properly train and educate your children in the way in which only parents can.
Absolutely. Matt says, good morning, Jez. Regarding school children and breakfast and toilet training, I find it astounding that those facts are correct and shocking. Being an alarm clock Brit, I was up at 4:45 this morning. I put my children's breakfast out before I left at 5:30. I'm in the middle of a 2.5-hour commute, and I will do a full 8 hours in the office before doing another 2.5 hours home. The fact that people lack the basic skills to look after their own children is a disgrace, and please God, don't even get me started on the Chinese embassy and all the other deals that this government seem to mess up. Here I am grafting, and I do not understand it. People up in arms. Keith in Sheffield, parenting classes for 10-year-olds and upwards should be compulsory in schools. Absolutely. Sex education, you know, out the way. It is. You're really right when you say about embarrassment. My kids have clean clothes every single day. I would, you know, I was brought up, we were joking yesterday, you know, I've got man flu, Mum. Really? I had pneumonia. Go to work. Shut up. Right? She always said that was her job. Making sure that her kids, maybe women don't like this nowadays, that her kids were fed, switched on, reading. Reading. It's not the school's responsibility. Start reading with your kids every night. Get them off the bloody iPad. I'm one now, aren't I? But it's true.
You're absolutely right. And that's another story today. You know, kids are, you know, picking up a book and, you know, swiping it as if it's some sort of, you know, iPad, because they, you know, because parents have given for far too long, and it's not an attack on parents. Yeah,
no, it is.
I don't have, you know.
No, let's be honest. It is. If you have kids, they're your bloody responsibility.
Totally. But I mean, the point I make is that, you know, parenting must be hard. I mean, I'm not a parent, so I'm, you know, full disclosure. But I see my sister, who's got 2 kids, you know, adorable kids, 4 and 1 years old, and you know. My sister, of course, at times you would just say, right, okay, here's the iPhone or here's the iPad. But they make the time and put in the hours and the work, because of the responsibility it is of being a parent, to make sure that they are being read stories, that they are actually having normal playtime, not just on an iPad or on a phone. So when they get to school age, or once at nursery now, they are able to do the most basic
Victoria
things.
does reading. She does. They have a set for drawing and pictures and. Slime, don't get me on bloody slime. But all sorts of, but it's responsibility, isn't it? Love your thoughts on that. Love your thoughts on the veterans. And the funny story today, of course, has got Alarm Clock Britain talking. Over half of dogs in the UK are now overweight. What do you feed your pet? You're going to get a cockapoo, aren't you?
I think so. Yes. Well, or that other one that somebody mentioned earlier, which I've forgotten its name.
Brilliant. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Jezza. We've had 3 dogs. None have been fat. We had a border collie. Lived to be 17 years old, fed good food. Right, we had a boxer, lived to be 15, fed on good food, never fat. We've currently got a Mastiff cross thing. She's at perfect weight. She's only 2 years old, but we give her good food. Me, 52, 21 bloody stone, mate. I need to get my priorities right. Whatever it is the dogs are eating, I think I'll have some myself.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. What is it? Almost 20 to 7 on Thursday morning, the 22nd of January. You're very welcome. This is JK on Breakfast to Talk. It's the home of free speech, common sense, and most importantly, Alarm Clock Britain. Morning, Laura.
Morning, Jeremy. Morning, Charlie. Laura in Wiltshire. I've actually been quite amused by the pearl clutching of Mark Carney and the Liberal commentators about Trump and his warmongering. He's got what he wanted. He may have a crazy style, but he's got what he wanted. We now just have to hope and pray that he puts enough pressure on the weasel Starmer to reverse Chagos and reverse the Chinese embassy. I hope and pray he makes him do a full reverse ferret. Great show.
It's really interesting. I think that will be the next thing for Trump. And we were talking about this. If you wake it up to it, look, some commentators will say he's done a U-turn. I think it's the art of the deal with him. I'll say it all morning. I think he shouts and screams and completely confuses them, and then they just go, oh, OK. Yesterday, he surpassed even himself. He basically said, listen, if it wasn't for America, you'd all be speaking German and Japanese. Have a watch.
And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now, you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps.
I said this once in history at 16 and got thrown out. And this, you know, alongside the veterans who I have the greatest respect for, let's nail this because I did a degree in it. The Second World War was heading to a stalemate until the Americans came in. It is an absolute fact. That was the basis of the special relationship. But only he would say, without me, you'll be speaking German and Japanese. And they all go, oh my God, this man's a madman. But he's walked out of Greenland with a deal, and that is the man we're talking about, right? And I'm with Laura. I hope he now puts pressure on. Chagos is a bloody disgrace. You know, Starmer was shown to be a hypocrite on Monday. Greenlanders should decide. But you sold the Chagos Islands without speaking to Chagossians and gave away our money. So I hope Laura's right. I hope that he's pushing Starmer on that, and also very much so on the Chinese embassy. Do you think that will happen or not?
I don't think it will.
Really?
I'm afraid. No. I think he'll use it as a criticism for sure, and I think he'll use it as a playful tool to sort of taunt Starmer at times. But yeah. I think that you asked about the special relationship earlier on, and I think the reason why that will continue, even if Trump is furious sometimes with Starmer, is because Trump still wants stuff out of the UK. So I think.
What does he want? What does he want? What can he have from us?
I think King Charles is due to visit America at some stage and do an American tour there. Trump still has obviously this great affinity with Scotland. You know, it's his hometown, so he has a connection to the UK. So I think we will probably still get off marginally lightly. However, I do think there was a bit of pressure from the EU leaders put on. I think when everybody reaches for the phone and says, "Look, Donald, no, really, we can't do this." But again, that's how well Trump plays, I think, the rest of Europe. So, credit to him for that. He's got what he wanted. But again, made the European and the Western sort of processes by doing things, just talking, committees, diplomacy, not actually taking any action. He's a doer, not a talker.
You're absolutely right. Sarah says, regarding children and poor parenting, Charlie and Jeremy. It's your show now. I'm afraid it's absolutely rife nowadays. Too quick to throw an iPad in front of them and babysit via YouTube. Gentle parenting is what's to blame. No, we don't punch mummy. Oh, please don't smash mummy's table. How about good old-fashioned parenting? Do that again, and I'll ground you a month and take your iPad away and probably put you... I used to say to my kids, you do that again, I'll put you in the garden with the foxes. Terrified them. Everybody might go, whoa! Yeah, absolutely. Louise from Ipswich, Charlie Rowley, they love you, man. Please ask Charlie to go to a shelter if he's going to take on a dog. That's not a bus shelter, that's a shelter for dogs. I know you spent a lot of time in bus shelters.
I thought you were telling me to go to a kennel there, or for me to go to a shelter.
No, go to a rescue shelter for dogs. Bill says teachers are now also expected to teach primary pupils how to clean their teeth. Absolutely. Cliff in Berkshire, of course it's the responsibility, Jez, of the parents to toilet train their kids. I blame the use of disposable nappies. When it was necessary to wash out terry nappies, this is very interesting, after each use, it incentivised parents to get their kids toilet trained as soon as possible. Now they don't bother. It's too easy to just bin one and stick a new clean one on. I'd never thought about that. The old terry toweling when I was a kid, the old nappy sound. Now it is. Maybe that's the case. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
You're not a nappy fan, are you, to be honest?
Bit before my time, maybe. I don't know.
My wife said she changed Iris the other day. I cannot wait for this child to be out of nappies, and I suspect by the time she is, I'll be putting one on you, Kyle, won't I? You're getting wound up about the veterans. Mike, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. You played my voice note a few weeks ago. I was the guy that said I'd jump up in a war situation as a veteran and get back out and defend this country. I now redact that. Just because of this government, and I don't know how anybody else should feel about this, but anybody to support this government, I now see as an internal enemy. My own countrymen are turning their backs, and I am utterly dumbfounded as to why people are sitting by and doing nothing to rise up against this government. It is an absolute disgrace. And you know, I've got a letter from the Secretary General for work that I did in Northern Ireland, and that letter now means nothing to me. Absolutely nothing. God bless our boys and girls that served.
Couldn't agree more. This is the story you're waking up to. The Tories, Charlie, were telling us that brought in a legacy bill that said you can't be prosecuted on stuff that happened whilst you were serving in the armed forces, certainly in Northern Ireland, with all the troubles there with the IRA before the Friday Agreement. And guess what? The Labour Party have decided to throw that out. So if you served and you did what you had to do for your king or queen and country, then you could be prosecuted. There's real outrage on this morning. Brian, the veteran thing is so annoying. This is the same government that want our veterans to step up to the plate if war breaks out, to keep them nice and safe, and yet they want to take away their rights and liberties. How many of these bloody Labour and Conservative and other MPs that support this are willing to send their kids out to fight for this country? Completely agree. Barry, I'm an op banner veteran, 4 tours. The Good Friday Agreement isn't worth the paper it's written on. We are ruled by a bunch of politicians in Northern Ireland that do not want a province to succeed. All they want is a united Ireland at all costs. I would be so angry, right? I would be, if I was a serviceman or woman, I would be so furious by this, Charlie. I would be absolutely, I mean, Stuart Brown. I've noticed adverts on buses around Bradford, of all places, saying the British Army is now recruiting. God knows, what do they think? Who's going to sign up for that? It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And look, you know, just to that last voice note, you know, which, you know, I think hit the nail on the head and covered all of these points. You know, what is, you know, who does this government, who do they stand up for now? Because it's certainly not our own veterans. You know, it's allowing them to sleep rough over migrants that have come in on a dinghy. You know, it's standing up for China over actually small businesses in the UK. It's attacking small business and through tax. It's attacking that alarm clock Britain that get up in the morning and go to work and do the right thing. You know, we're on the side of parents, it seems to me, you know, that allow their kids to go to school untrained, you know, rather than actually having the hard conversation with people and saying, no, take your responsibilities, you know, take your responsibilities.
But he won't, this government doesn't have hard conversations. So one thing I promised you with the show is that we give you balance. This is gonna put the cat amongst the pigeons from Ian. Let's draw a parallel between the army and the police. Both serve to protect the British public. The majority do it well, but remember, some of our cops have been proven to be rapists and murderers. Is it not right, therefore, that if they are prosecuted, that the illegal minority in the army, who could be like them, be prosecuted as well, Charlie Rowley? That's from Ian.
Well, I think there would be other laws in place if there is someone that is obviously have acted as abhorrently as those police that hit
there's a difference with respect to him between being a rapist and maybe a few clandestine actions with your gun, weapons or your approach because some bloke was trying to blow you up.
Yes.
Is that not true?
Exactly. You know, there is clearly one group of people in terms of the policing examples there going away out of their, you know, abusing their power and responsibility.
Absolutely.
Versus someone that is in the uniform when you're dealing with people who are, you know, war is not straightforward, you know, because of all the activity. Terrorism is not, you know, easily combated.
Please put your weapon down. We're not Zach Polanski, the man who said, and I quote, the Green leader, well, if I was the Prime Minister, I'd simply go to Moscow and I'd say to that Mr. Putin, can you please put your nuclear weapons down? Do you know what, honestly, don't start me on that.
Sure, yes,
Morning, Jane.
Morning, JK. On the Veterans Bill, this is the same government that only last week said that they were going to increase the age where they could ask them to support their country to 65. They're absolutely off the trolleys. We need to get them out.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having elections.
I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, Andrew, you know, you've got to do this to me.
So you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about wasting time when there's more.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. You're waking up to the news that Donald Trump has done a deal. We call it the art of the deal, others not. Keir Starmer's cozying up to China and off on a visit, apparently soon. Robert Jenrick, the defector, yes, he's done lots of interviews, but he hasn't taken your calls. He's here from 9 o'clock this morning. Ring Rob for a whole hour. You're up in arms domestically. Kids going to school wearing nappies at 4 and our veterans being screwed by this Labour government. But most of all, we're talking, we're not most of all, we're talking about how half of the dogs in the UK are now overweight. What do you feed your pet? 87222. And Charlie Rowley, who's admitted that he'd like a dog. You've just shown me a picture of a what?
Somebody behind the scenes suggested a Pomeranian,
no,
which a short-haired dog is fine.
Then you mentioned, because you're quite classy, a corgi.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to tell you a very funny story. It's only 30 seconds, because I can tell you this because the old man's dead. As you know, he was the Queen Mother's private secretary for years and years and years. But when he first got the job, he went through a whole series of interviews, and they spent their last few quid's money on a new suit and tie, and his final shirt and tie. And his final interview, he arrived at St James's Palace, Clarence House, and he was told and he basically told me that he had to go through about 5 double doors. And this footman said to him, right, through the next doors is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, and you must bow very low, and it's Your Majesty, and then it's Ma'am. You step forward, she'll offer her hand, and that's whatever. And he said, I bow bloody low. He said, the doors opened, as he said, and I bow bloody low in my new suit. And this corgi took off from the chair next to her, Blackie it was called, genuine true story, and started, I don't know how to best describe this, shagging his knee, basically, in his new suit. And so he's trying to bow in front of the Queen Mother and shake this dog off his knee, and that was the first time he ever met her. And so I wouldn't get a corgi.
Oh, well, but
unless you want your knee done.
Well, a memorable meeting.
Oh, a memorable
meeting. You wouldn't forget that, would you?
No. Steve, don't get a corgi. Steve in Lincoln, JK, loving the show. Why is the King not standing up to Starmer and telling him to do one? Because it's a constitutional monarchy and he can't. There are 2.4... Michael Kenny, did you know this? There are 2.4 million vets who will no longer vote Labour if they ever did before. That's interesting. Damon from Wigan, I'm a veteran and I sit here waiting for my letter about my duties in the army. And now the Labour Party want to to prosecute for orders I followed and carried out. My proud history in the army is gone and panic has set in my life. That's dreadful, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you know, that is a very, very good point, because you've got people who are making the decisions, who are ordering those troops, those boots on the ground to go and carry out some of the missions and tasks that they have to do. That is them doing their duty. They are following orders, which is there to defend and protect us all from whether they're terrorists, whether it's an external army, whether it's a bad acting state, whoever
Does
it
somebody
is.
like Starmer think, you know, that you're at war, or you're trying to police terrorists who will blow you up? You know, he just had his front door set fire to. Imagine if your whole house was firebombed and you're going to go up to these people and say, oh, could you stop doing that? It's ludicrous.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's an insult to the men and women that have served.
Yeah, totally. And you know, the lives in which, you know, many people who have gone, you know, it's impossible to comprehend what it would be like on the battlefield unless you've actually been on there. And, you know, as that another texter said earlier on, you know, this government, loads of them will have no idea what it's like to hear a gunshot, you know, fire off. And so when you come away from that and you try and re-engage, I imagine, in sort of civilian life, the trauma that you might take with you from some of those operations, the idea that 20 years or so later, this could all be dug up again and someone could accuse you of doing something that, you know, they want to drag you through the lawyers for, the amount of pressure and the mental health that will have on our veterans, the bravest men and women of our country, is completely absurd.
And the outrageous thing about that is that we talk all the time, quite rightly with some people, about mental health and issues, but we also know there's a huge number of people in this country that now play that card. Vic, my wife's got a good friend whose boyfriend, soon-to-be husband, served for years, and I won't even go, I would be disrespectful, but what he saw and what happened to him, he's had PTSD, and it's taken him years to get back into to a sort of a normal job and normal life. He probably sits there now every day wondering whether he's going to be prosecuted. I think it's an app. There's so much, actually, when you sit here and you go, this is a shame on us nationally. The lack of a grooming gang inquiry is a stain on the United Kingdom. The post office scandal is a stain on the United Kingdom. And the way we treat our veterans, and I tell this story every day when I go into my local town on a Saturday, there's a guy sat there, 14 years he served, and he's homeless. The migrants are in a lovely hotel, and this poor bugger's not only homeless, but probably waiting for a letter from this stupid government saying we're going to prosecute you.
Yeah, and you're absolutely, and
outrageous.
That just goes to the heart of what this is all about. You know, who is this government? Whose side are they on? What are their priorities?
Not the people. Anybody who isn't the people. Does that sound unfair to say that?
And just ask yourself, what other country, you know, would be doing this? You know, it certainly wouldn't be America, who you know, when talking, people have got all kinds of things to say about Donald Trump. But, you know, fair play to him, regaining that strength in America, America first, protecting the people that put on the uniforms, having that pride and that patriotism restored back to the country,
my daughter's
to make it proud.
One of the number 3, I call her. She's going off to Camp America. It will take 3 months minimum to get a visa for a 20-year-old girl to go and work in Camp America. This country, I'll come straight in, I'll put a veteran on the street and I'll get whatever. And it honestly, and it's like Tony says, guys, something has gone drastically wrong in the United Kingdom over the past few years. Literally everything is in decline. Parents can't feed their own kids. We're slagging off veterans. We seem to be helping those that don't help themselves. And I bring it back to every morning, Charlie, that we don't seem to look after the people that put in what they put in. And I'm not just talking about money. If you live your life correctly, you get screwed nowadays.
Exactly. And that goes to the heart of, of politics, to where we are today. You know, is Britain broken? I know that was a headline last week and a question, but
is it broken?
But that is the question.
Because Jenrick, who's by the way Ring Rob's on later, he said it was Kemi Badenoch, whatever she's called. What is she called, by the way?
Badenoch.
And apparently annoys her if you say Badenoch.
Well,
what a stupid.
You know, people will. I think, you know. I'm sure that Thursday was quite a pressurised day for Rob. You know, so misspeaking somebody's name, I think you can be forgiven for.
Making
I don't think
point
it was
of it and nothing else.
But you're absolutely right. You know, of course Britain's broken. You know, is it beyond repair? No, it's not. I think there was the semantics of no, we've got, and of course you've got to inject a bit of hope and optimism in this country. Of course you've got to get the things things right. But you've got to be open about the starting point where we face, where this government now has all of its priorities it's seemingly directed at other people.
Mark from Hedge End. Morning, Jez. I have woken up to the news about veterans this morning. I am a philosophical person and take everything with calmness because of my training. However, I am absolutely incredulous with raw fury that Starmer and his toads have repealed this law and decided to go after those who put their lives on the line. Is there something wrong with this government? Are they in fact communists? And I would feel, you know what, if I'd served my country, I would feel exactly the same. Charlie Rowley, every Thursday, something for the weekend, Governor. Off to buy a cockapoo.
I'll keep you posted.
Let me know what you're buying, and we appreciate you being on. Listen, news at 7, we've got James Price. We'll talk more about veterans, about kids not being able to put a nappy on to go to school. We'll talk Starmer. Nappies to Starmer? You know what I'm saying. And Donald Trump did the deal yesterday. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes. Get them into Christian. And, of course, your text, 87-222. Start your message with the word talk. It's Thursday morning and the news at 7 is next on Talk Breakfast.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 7 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom on Talk. It is, of course, the home of common sense, and it's where alarm clock Brits come to have their say. If you haven't been with us the first hour, dynamic start. We are as busy as hell. You're waking up to the news that Donald Trump last night dropped his threat to invade Greenland, dropped his threat to put tariffs on the UK and other European countries because he said he'd reached a deal for a future framework for Greenland and the entire icy Arctic region. Many people, certainly many commentators, saying, Trump U-turned. He U-turned. I'm not trying to be difficult. I see it differently. I see it in this way. I think he is what he is. I'm not sticking him on a pedestal in any which way. There's plenty about him that annoys me. But the art of the deal, which is Donald Trump through and through, is to go in all guns blazing, make threats, because he knows exactly what he wants to come away. So our view would be, my view would be, he's threatened invasion, he's threatened tariffs, and he's walked away with greater sovereignty and a bigger military presence on Greenland, and it's a win-win. The cynics will say it's a U-turn. Pressure at home is certainly starting on Donald Trump, with people saying, too much abroad stuff, mate. You need to concentrate on the American economy a year in. We'd love your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000 for those voice notes, and your text is ever 87222. Dreary Sakir could be off to China soon on a visit. Like I care. I do care about the super embassy, which I think is a massive security risk. But perhaps the two domestic stories that are really getting you this morning, and quite right, is 1 in 4 school starters are still in nappies because parents don't think toilet training is their job. Growing numbers of kids are not ready for school. Some kids swiping on books because they think it's an iPad, going with unclean teeth, no food in their belly. It's a disgrace. I could sit here and rant. I've got man flu, so I won't, because my voice will give up. But I think if you have a kid, you should take bloody responsibility for that child. I don't think it's the teacher's or the state's responsibility. It's yours. Thoughts on that, please? And the story that's really getting traction this morning. When the Conservatives were in power, and there was many things they did wrong, but what was really good was the Legacy Bill, which said that if you served in the armed forces, you couldn't be prosecuted on stuff that had gone on, certainly in Northern Ireland. You were in a military position. I'm sure there were clandestine things happening. Labour has decided to throw that out. We have already spoken to received thousands of texts, and we've already had a couple of people on voice notes saying, you know what, I'm a veteran who gave my all for this country, and now I sit here in fear that I'm going to be prosecuted. I think it's an absolute damn disgrace. Morning, Dan.
Good morning, JK. It's Dan from Kent. I'm a veteran, and I served 2 tours in Northern Ireland back in the 90s. I was going to say, I had a couple of months training, and I was expected to be professional and to police the province with my rifle, carrying a little yellow card with rules of engagement. But I must add, the terrorists had no rules. They could do what they want. And for this government to overturn a law where a veteran from decades ago could be prosecuted absolutely disgusts me. They've just recently increased the age from 55 to 65 to re-enlist reservists. Good luck with that one, Keir.
Warren in Coventry says, Phil, JK, this veteran atrocity, hopefully our brave and fantastic veterans will fight against this traitorous anti-British so-called government. They are outrageous and need to go. Dave is a veteran who wouldn't pee on Star if he was on fire. This disgusts me more and more every day. Let's just take, it is outrageous. Thank you for everything you've done to protect us. We're going to put you in jail because in a different world, we don't like the fact that you might have got your rifle out and been nasty to somebody. Do me a bleeding favour. A very good morning to former government advisor, ensconced in the country, surrounded by animals. Good morning, James Price.
Good morning, my friend. I'm very glad to hear that you are battling manfully through the man flu. Well, they say that sometimes pregnancy for a woman can be so bad and painful that it starts to approach what a man feels when he has a cold.
I agree with you, but unfortunately, as I said yesterday, I was brought up by a woman who would go, Mum, yep, I don't feel great today. Good, because I had pneumonia in the Second World War. You're going to school. Get out of me ass. So, yeah, we just come to work. JP, how's the country? You look like you're in the... You look like you're in... I'll tell you what you look like. You look like you're in a cubicle waiting to have an ultrasound. That looks like one of those curtains behind you. Are you all right? Shower curtain.
You've been very disobliging about Mother Price's curtains before. I think they look very fetching, because I know she's next door watching.
Mother Price, I love your curtains. Very nice. We'll be down for dinner soon. A very good morning to you. Let's start with Trump, because I know you might have a different view. Yesterday, having threatened invasion, JP, having threatened tariffs against the whole of Europe, and watched a succession of leaders go, oh, my God, and all these little officials running around getting completely wound up. Some will say he backtracked, U-turned, dropped tariffs, dropped the invasion. He says they've reached a future framework for a deal. I just put forward the theory that it's typical Trump, isn't it? I'm going to shout from the rooftops, make all these threats, I'm going to watch you lot all scurry around like ants and you don't know what to do, and then I'm going to get what I want and I'm going to get on Air Force One and get the hell out of there.
Bingo. I think that's exactly it. In the move, I haven't yet unpacked my copy of The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump, but it lays all this stuff out 40 years ago. It's what he always does.
Yep.
Massively overshoots, and then you end up with the situation he wants. The mistake is, I think here, that, well, two mistakes. One, that everybody keeps falling for it every single time. Although some of us, and I think I was on your show on Monday and we talked about this, exactly what he would end up doing. The problem from Trump's perspective is that's all very well and good when you're doing, I don't know, budget negotiations with Congress, because in America, the president doesn't have complete control over budgets. He's got to get that permission from the House and from the Senate, and that's all kind of fine argy-bargy on this stuff. I think the mistake is there's something as near, to me at least, sacred as NATO. Forget the European Union. It's NATO that has kept Europe safe. It's NATO that won the Cold War, and it's NATO that does such an important peacekeeping role still all around the world, keeping us all safe. To play around with something like that, I think that crosses the line, and although it's worked out for him, and I think that NATO should have been more sensible in anticipating some of this, and Europe and European countries should have had much bigger defence budgets for a long time in order to not be bullied around so easily, I think that's where the problem has come in. I'm glad to see at least that it's been...
No, I get that, but I do pick you up on what you just said about NATO. And I'm not sticking up for Trump. There's much, and I'll keep saying it, I'll tell you when I disagree with him, but when he came back into the White House a year ago, he went for NATO, which you think is great. I don't think it's as effective as it was. And the ratio of who spent what was the old story, which was America is defending Europe and spending more. And I think they were on the back foot from that moment. They all jumped around and said, oh, yes, we'll spend more. Well, why didn't you do that before? Because the successive series of American presidents had never held your feet to the fire. So I get it, but he is bluster. Whether it works, I should ask you, because I had to give some credit here. What did you make of the I will not yield speech? But in fact, I'm going to play it. Some people are saying that this is Starmer finally growing a pair. This was him telling Trump where to go. Not in Davos, by the way, to his face, in Westminster, the coward.
President Trump deployed words on Chagos yesterday that were different to his previous words of welcome and support when I met him in the White House. He deployed those words yesterday for the express purpose of putting pressure on me and Britain in relation to my values and principles on the future of Greenland. Mr. Speaker, he wants me to yield on my position, and I'm not going to do so.
It's the first time I've ever heard him speak like that. Was that a good moment for Starmer, JP?
No, there's never going to be a good moment for this disgusting critter. I'm afraid that this is the first time that he has ever stood up for anything. And what is it he's standing up for, Jeremy? He's standing up for the fact that Britain is going to be giving away our territory and paying billions and billions of pounds to do it. Will he stand up for all the grooming gangs victims? No, of course not. Will he stand up for the Northern Ireland veterans we're going to talk about? No, of course not. Will he stand up for all the school kids who've had a great education that his education secretary is now going to be destroying? No, of course not. Is he going to be standing up for people who've been failed by the NHS as a system and get some serious reforms into it? No, of course not. Is he going to be standing up to the Chinese? No, of course not. Is he going to be standing up to the Russians? No, not really. Is he going to be standing up to the fact that he wants to give away sovereign British territory because some international rights lawyers, his mates, were paid by Mauritius to make it happen? That's what he's going to stand up for. And just before Trump came over to Davos, he was asked about this in a White House press briefing that came out beforehand.
Yeah.
And this is when he made his criticisms. And he said, no, I don't understand this. You know, it's a terrible deal giving away. They're supposed to be our ally. Why are they doing it? Do they want the money or something? Donald Trump cannot get his head around the fact that not only are we giving away this territory,
we're giving away nigh on 35. It's 35 billion quid. Did you know that? It's 35 billion quid, the cost of this. And listen, we went on and on about this. This is a huge slice of our national debt. You'd make sense. I mean, this government, JP, you're so right, mate. And listen, I have to ask the question about Starmer, but this government suddenly finds 35 billion to give away a piece of sovereign land to a country that's in the pocket of China. Oh, there we go. And they won't pay any income tax. And he'll also agree to a Chinese embassy that even his own security services have said is a complete disgrace. And he's going on a trip. and the whole thing carries on. I'm not complimenting him. My criticism of Starmer was the rhetoric might have been a thing, but certainly not in Davos, only in Westminster. I firmly believe with Trump, I've said it a long time, he's the sort of person that you have to stand up to and say it to his face, and Starmer will never have that. Here's a question for you, though. Chagos, it was after you were on Monday, or maybe it wasn't. Actually, Chagos happened, and he tore him a second one, I thought. I think complete hypocrisy between Greenlanders should decide, oh, but I just gave away Chagos without asking the Chagosians, and the Chinese super embassy. Charlie Rowley said no. I'll put the question to you. Do you think that will be next on Trump's agenda? Do you think he'll put pressure on Starmer on those two decisions or not?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And I'm with you that he should have said this to Trump face-to-face. Of course, Keir Starmer was once asked whether he prefers Westminster or Davos. And he said, oh, obviously Davos. So it's a real pity that he's too much of a coward to actually go to his favourite holiday trip this year. We know how many foreign trips Starmer has done, and he's too scared to go and see Trump, and so he's missed out on his favourite trip. Boo-hoo for him. I think this is going to be the next thing that comes along down the track. We have been very, very weak on China for a very, very long time, and it was almost forgivable in the years of the coalition. You know, China was opening up a little bit. They had the big Olympic Games, and Hu Jintao, who was the previous premier, was a lot quieter and softer, and they really were focusing on economic growth and, internal repression of all their people, plus ça change for what all communists always do. But when Xi Jinping comes in and starts acting the way that he's done, after a few years, there was no forgiving this. Remember Theresa May, and still even Boris as well, were very weak on Huawei,
they were.
On having these Chinese crucial systems threaded through our national security infrastructure, through our energy stations. Absolutely ludicrous stuff. And it was the Americans and, bless them, the Australians and the Canadians and others who came in and said, what the heck are you guys doing?
Remember, you're in Mummy's house. Remember, you're in Mummy's house. Behave yourself. Mate, I'm with you. And I think that, Donald Trump will never be everybody's cup of tea. And there's a certain way that he does business. But for me, what Starmer lacks in so many quarters is cojones, vision, passion, DNA. Let me bring it on to the subject. We'll talk kids in a minute, but this veterans thing has literally got them going mad this morning. Carl in Ironbridge, Starmer must go. This veterans thing is the final straw. However, only people to blame is everyone who voted for this shower in. This is the story this morning, that our veterans who were protected for what happened in Northern Ireland with a legacy bill under the Tories, let's just say that because we slag the Tories off a lot, this is being reversed by Labour, so that if you served 25 years ago as a man or a woman in our armed forces, donned the uniform, took your rifle, took to the streets of Northern Ireland amongst all the bloodshed and the terrorists and the bombs and the fear, and did what your government of the day or your platoon commander told you because you were representing the Queen, you're now sitting on some poxy pension waiting, if you're not homeless because a migrant's got you home, waiting to be prosecuted by this government. This, to me, and I'm not trying to over-egg it, is on a par with the disgraceful lack of a child grooming inquiry. To treat your veterans like this is unbelievably low, JP. Unbelievable.
I'm always reticent to use language that could be considered inflammatory, but I can't see any other way around the fact that what Keir Starmer is doing in leading a government that is doing this is evil. It is evil. This is deeply, deeply wicked. This takes the best impulses of the best of us to serve one's nation, to serve as one's king and country and fellow people, to put one's life on the line, to do what is right, to fight the most barbaric terrorists that our society had ever created before all the 45,000 Islamists that we've now got, by the way. To serve those people against those evil terrorists is a great and noble thing, and we should be grateful and thankful every day for the sacrifice of some big, hard, nasty gits who keep us safe in our beds, whether that was in Northern Ireland or around the world. And
on war and terrorism's not difficult. Do me a favour. This is a ludicrous. Here's something for you.
Evil.
Here's something. You're right. It is evil. Will in Liverpool. Starmer and his army of middle-class lawyers going after veterans, in my mind, is purely ideological. Why doesn't he go after Tony Blair, who sent our brave men and women into an illegal war for those weapons that didn't damn well exist? That's a great point from Will, isn't it? Go after bloody Blair.
It's a great question. Go after the... Yeah, there are so many more deserving targets of this. And these guys, just imagine, as you say, Jeremy, that you sign up to serve your country and you think, you know, at the very least, the state will have my back in some way because it's asking me to do things that most people can't do. And then this. So not only is this evil and wicked, you just mentioned Stammer's lack of vision. What happens now? What's going to happen to recruitment numbers? We're talking about how Russia's planning to invade the rest of Europe. We're facing this terrifying moment. The French and the Germans are moving back towards conscription, by the way, that the Swedes and the Finns have got and the Poles have got. Poles have got this massive army because they know what's coming down the track. So we're talking this terrifying game about Russia and all the rest of it. And yet at the same time, we're saying, oh, by the way, if you go and kill some of those Russians in a way that we don't necessarily like, or by we, I mean my lefty human rights lawyer who I've made the Attorney General, Richard Hermer, if he doesn't like it in 20, 30 years after you've saved this country, we're going to come after you.
But mate, I've never seen anger like this. And I'll tell you where I put it on a scale. We followed a story, Jennifer Mellay. I'm going to repeat this from an hour ago. This is the nurse in London who'd worked and trained all her life to be a nurse. It was her life's ambition. A transgender convicted paedophile, in brackets kiddie fiddler, came in to get, and she's treating him and he's being vile. She misgenders him by calling him Mr. by mistake. He calls her the N-word. She has to fight for a career for 2 whole years and gets no support. This government, on the Troubles Bill, this was the quote, "It's incompatible with the European Convention on Human Rights." Let's hear what Donald thinks of this. Morning, Donald.
Morning, Jeremy. This is Donald in Bridgend, South Wales. I'm a veteran of 12 years, but luckily I haven't got nothing to worry about with this new Veterans Bill. But I have friends and family who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they are worried. I've also had a friend that I served with who took nearly, I think, 10 years to clear his name.
This is at the end, is it? Jay, how can we do that to the people that matter, that have served for us? It's not right, man. How do they think this is okay?
It's deeply, deeply wicked, and they don't care because they're evil people. I think that's the easiest conclusion. The next best conclusion is that they're just so stupid that they cannot understand a second-order consequence. I mean, we see that across all of their decisions. They can't understand the second-order consequence of kowtowing to the trade unions, of what that will do to children's education. They can't see the second-order consequence of massively hiking taxes so that people end up leaving the country and we all end up poorer. They can't see the consequences of falling out with our best and closest military partners, and they can't see the consequences of what will happen if they start saying that you can't end up being a soldier without the risk of being persecuted and sued into the ground, just as the world gets more dangerous again. And they're not just doing this to veterans. I think they're doing this to current members of special forces.
They are.
You read Dominic Cummings' blogs on this. He's very, very good. And I think my old boss, Nadim Zahawi, quoted it in his speech last week. I think he called them insane government lawyers. These are people who are now sent around the world to kill the nastiest and most dangerous people in the world. These are heroes, and they are being persecuted and prosecuted by the most, I'll remember that Mummy Price is next door, by scumbags, by evil, evil people
Completely
inside
agree.
government who don't care. They don't care about our country. They don't care about our safety. They are evil, and they must be stopped.
Morning, Jake. I'm a Falklands veteran, listening to you and JP, who never served in Northern Ireland. America respects our veterans more than this country. Labour are a disgrace. They need to go as soon as possible. Morning, Jess, says Barry. Not forgetting that in this Labour government, this for you, JP, there are veterans. Does Dan Jarvis, Al Carnes and Mike Tapp have no shame whatsoever? That's a really good point. That's a really good point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And those are, not coincidentally, I think, some of the better Labour MPs. They are people that seem to be more moderate, seem to understand, seem to actually have some affection for the country. And I think it's the sense of loyalty and duty that probably was drummed into them when they were serving that means they think they're doing the right thing by trying to serve the greater good. But I think that for people like that, real patriots, I think the point will come when they will have to leave, because Starmer, as much as he is awful and disgusting and disgraceful on this issue, whoever comes along to succeed him, and that's probably going to happen this year, is going to be even worse and is going to care even less. Probably won't have quite as many human rights lawyers breathing down his neck because they want to get some compensation money in. But these people don't care about our country. They don't care about our veterans. They don't care about our future safety. The single first thing that a government is supposed to do, the defence of the realm, and they are letting us all down. So what do you think they do about everything else, about the economy, about your kids, about the NHS? They don't care. They put the ECHR, foreign judges, over British people. That's all you need to know.
Can I just say to Mummy P, not only do I love your curtains, your boy's the best by a mile. Fantastic, Joe P. Great to see you. Love to the family. Enjoy the country. Very kind of him to be on 0344 499 1000. You're waking up to the news that Trump's done a deal on Greenland. The art of the deal or a U-turn king? Your decision, Starmer. Under a lot of criticism today because he's let that super Chinese embassy go through. He's off to China and everybody's going, are you in their pocket, mate? This is a security nightmare. But the thing that's really got you, the two domestic stories, our veterans are facing prosecution by this government who are throwing out a bill that the Tories put to protect them and saying, oh, you might have got up some naughty stuff a few years ago in Northern Ireland. So thanks for that. Thanks for being on a crap pension. Thanks for a lot of you being on the streets because migrants are more important. We might well put you in jail. I'll tell you what, in an hour and a half, the latest and newest Reform MP, Robert Jenrick, that big furore last week about how he defected. He's done loads of press, but he hasn't answered any calls. We've got Ring Rob for an hour from 9. Have a watch, have a listen.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carl Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
Wasting time.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carl Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the
forget,
job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having elections.
I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to Reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, Andrew, you know, you've got to do this to
So
me.
you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Really busy show this morning. 7:27 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Morning, Paula. How are you?
Morning, Jeremy. Paula in Liverpool here. I think we got a real glimpse of Keir Starmer in Prime Minister's Question Times yesterday. Me and my values. It's not about you and your values. It's about this country and what's best for this country. I think it was a bit of a scary insight into him yesterday, and I don't like it one bit. Thanks, Jeremy. Paula in Liverpool.
Thank you, Paula. 0344 419 1000. You can talk about Trump, you can talk about Starmer, you can talk about kids, 1 in 4 starting school in nappies, parents not teaching them to feed, read, do anything. What's the risk? I mean, that's a big story. You can talk about veterans. I should let you know our reporter Samara Gill will speak to veterans down in Westminster. Did it yesterday after Labour tabled an amendment to the legacy bill from the Tories, which basically said, thanks for doing your job in the armed forces and being on a crap pension, we are actually going to prosecute you. We say a very good morning. This man is a legend, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. I wish I had more time today, but I don't. Nigel Evans, how are you?
Good morning. I'm very, very good and very angry, like everybody else who wakes up every morning and reads the morning papers. I mean, you just look at the stories and you think, this simply cannot be true. And you get more angry when you realise it is. It's awful.
I mean, we talk about Trump and the art of the deal, and we can talk about the Chinese embassy, but I want to talk about veterans this morning because the calls and the texts are absolutely raining in. Nigel, how can any sane person, unless they are, again, posturing as human rights lawyers and wanting to look good in the world. Can you imagine Donald Trump saying, thank you so much indeed 30 years ago for fighting for the United States of America, I'm going to prosecute you. I've said during this show there are many stains on our society. One of them is the lack of an inquiry into the child grooming gangs for the reasons that Labour are scared of losing the Muslim vote. This is on a par with this, Nigel. This is disgusting.
Yeah, it's beyond disgusting. The only people who seem to have got away with it are the IRA. These people have been given protection. The terrorists. I was in the Grand Hotel when the bomb went off in the 1980s.
Were you?
I was, yeah. And that killed 5 people. If you remember, Margaret Tebbutt's wife was disabled for the rest of her life. There must have been others there who clearly lived the rest of their lives in pain. And yet those terrorists were given protection. And yet the people who are our veterans, the ones who were putting their lives at risk to protect us, to protect society there in Northern Ireland, are the ones who are now being chased by a bunch of money-grabbing lawyers. I just find it absolutely incredible that Keir Starmer would do this. You are right to actually compare Donald Trump and the Americans on the way that they treat their veterans. They love their veterans. They absolutely love the people who have fought for the United States in wars over decades. And yet we are now turning on people who are in their 70s, who are retired, who, as you say, are on pensions which would only be a smattering of the gold-lined pension that Keir Starmer is going to get. And yet now these people in their 70s are going to be worried to death. Instead of enjoying a pint in the pub down the road...
Can't go to a pub, there's none open.
They will now be having to knock on the door of lawyers to protect them. I hope there's going to be a bunch of lawyers out there who are prepared to defend these people at no cost whatsoever. If there are any lawyers listening, please do this. Protect our veterans against these other lawyers who Keir Starmer is now defending.
I couldn't put it better myself. And I know, we do lots of worldly stuff, but this is such an issue. Can you explain to me, as a politician of 30 years of experience, because people will say, oh, Jez, you go for Starmer every day. What is the possible logic between putting the rights of IRA bombers in front of men and women who have donned the uniform to protect this country? That is almost... sorry, I'm going to use the wrong word. To me, that's almost treason. That's anti-British. That's against your own country, Nigel Evans.
Yeah, I can't get my head around it, to be honest. It is in the same sort of basket as paying Mauritius $35 billion to take the Chagos Islands away, which of course is strategically important for the United Kingdom. It's a shame that the Americans have woken up really late on this one, but I do hope that they will make a difference there. I mean, it's appalling. If you explained what Starmer is doing to Donald Trump now, he'd be open-mouthed. Literally, this would never happen. I almost don't think it would happen in any other country where we are putting lawyers before our veterans. And I think Kemi Badenoch is absolutely right. We've got to leave the ECHR ECHR. If the ECHR is the problem, let's get rid of it. Let's replace it with...
That's what Labour have said, that the reason they're getting rid of the Tories' legacy bill on veterans and bringing in this Troubles bill, right, where they're going to say, you can actually be prosecuted. We'll let the IRA off, but we're going to screw our... They say it's incompatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. Well, we need to get out of that ridiculous convention as soon as possible. And we're looking at some figures of the atrocities, some images that went on. There were bombs. Airey Neave was killed in London. It's absolutely outrageous. And those poor men and women who protected us, and people might not know this in the 70s, 80s, it was rife everywhere, car bomb. It was dreadful, right? And what do we get? We're going to... I honestly, Nigel, I genuinely can't get my head around it. I can't.
You know, when I first got elected, Jeremy, one of the things we were told to do, this is early 1992, was to look under our car, just in case a device had been... Seriously, and I used to do it. I used to look under my car. I don't know what I was looking for, but I looked under my car just in case the IRA had planted a bomb. These are people... and if ECHR says that you can't have... you can't protect our veterans, then why is it that we're protecting the IRA? Why is it that we're protecting terrorists? Why doesn't the ECHR say if you've got to go after people who have transgressed the law, irrespective of whether they're veterans? Well, what did they think the terrorists were doing? And yet we've given protection to them. Why? For the peace. Well, we should ensure that our veterans get at least the same protection as terrorists. It's bonkers. It really is. And it does make me incredibly angry that there are 70-year-olds out there now who are worried to death for all that they were doing was protecting us from evil terrorists.
Mate, I could not agree more, and thank you, because you put it brilliantly. Just very quickly on Trump. I probably have a different view than some of the mainstream media. They're all saying he U-turned. I go bluff and bluster, all guns blazing. I was saying it's how I was taught to sell. You want to get gold, they want to buy bronze, you end up with silver. He goes in, you're all fascists, I'm going to invade, I'm going to drop tariffs. I just want greater control over the military, and he's come away with what he wants. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right. They don't know how to deal with Trump.
No, they don't.
The way that Starmer deals with Trump is not going to Davos, so he doesn't have to talk to him.
And I thought we all thought Davos was his favourite place. They were slightly confused by that, if we're honest.
It's a bit odd that it's all right for Nigel Farage to go to Davos, and yet Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, won't go there. Why? Because he's packing his bags ready to go to China. And, China is the great beneficiary of the Chagos Island sellout. And China is the great beneficiary of the mega embassy that's now going to be allowed in London. I mean, this is really absolutely appalling that we are going to be kowtowing to the Chinese, and the Chinese will walk all over us, for goodness sake. Trump has got exactly what he wants. And as I said, it's a joy almost to watch all these European politicians. They haven't got the faintest idea how to deal with Donald Trump.
I think you stand up to him. I think he admires strength. I think he just... Yeah. Starmer doesn't even have the balls to go to Davos and tell him to his face. Nigel, just one final thing from you, my friend.
He's got it wrong on Greenland, Trump.
Yeah.
But he's right on the Chagos Islands.
Do you think that he will put pressure on us to change the Chagos deal?
I pray. And even Donald got it wrong when he thought that we were selling the Chagos Islands.
Try telling him we're giving 16 billion. He'd fall off his bloody chair. Nigel Evans, we love you. Thank you very much indeed. Listen, by the way, we've got Mel Stride live from Westminster, the Shadow Chancellor, on the way. There's that other story in the newspaper that 1 in 4 kids starting primary school can't use the loo. Let's go to Phil very quickly. 30 seconds. What you got for me, kiddo?
Yeah, sorry. Hello, Jeremy. It just makes me sick to think about. I'm sorry, I did have a little rant at your bloke who took the call, but it just makes me sick to think of these little, well, not little, these big fat old birds sitting on their sofa, eating their crisps and drinking their Stellas, and then sending their kids off to school with a half-eaten burger, and it just makes me angry, so much angry.
This is the story, by the way. Thank you, Phil. This is the story in the Mail. 1 in 4 children starting primary school can't use loos or feed themselves. They're swiping on books. Everybody's going, oh, well, the teachers... No. Have a child and look after it yourself. And don't give me that crap, oh, I haven't got money to teach my kid to read or keep its clothes clean. He's right. Stop drinking Stella, stop smoking and concentrate on being a parent. 23 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's go live to London. Wonder what the weather is. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, good morning. Oh.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Oh, bless him. There's dedication. We've got the scarf. The wind is howling. Thank you for joining us. I wouldn't be doing my job.
Pleasure.
I wouldn't be doing my job correctly, Mel. I like you, but I need to ask you about last week. You were one of 3 Tory high-ranking politicians that Robert Jenrick aimed barbs at when he defected to Reform. He implied that you and Priti Patel had been responsible for stuff that you now realise was wrong, but none of you were brave enough to say that. What would you say to that in response to Robert Jenrick?
Well, I think there's a certain lack, if I may say so, of self-awareness on his part there, because, of course, he rather neatly skips over the fact that he was part of the previous Conservative government as well. But also the fact, Jeremy, that he had said before he made those remarks that I had showcased the very best of the Conservative Party and lauded the fact that my welfare reforms were both fair and also paving the way for responsible tax cuts. So I think you've basically just got somebody here who says what he thinks suits his current purpose. So I wouldn't put anything more to it than that.
Do you, just to close it, do you go...
He's tried to...
Do you go with the view amongst many Tories that Robert Jenrick defected not out of principle because he saw there was no longer a leadership opportunity because Kemi's doing a better job?
Well, I see somebody who has changed his tune throughout time to suit his purpose, who is personally very, very ambitious, and I'm afraid what he's been saying, certainly at the time of his defection, does not fit with what he was saying when he was within the Conservative fold. You know, this is somebody, Jeremy, who was quite happy to sit at the shadow cabinet table nodding away with others and so on, but as soon as the moment arrived, a well-planned moment incidentally, where he'd taken a decision clearly some time ago to defect, then suddenly he changed his tune, and I think people will draw their own conclusions on that.
Love your honesty, Mel. 22-8. We'll talk the economy in a tick. The story that has literally blown up this morning, excuse the pun, is this appalling Labour change to the Troubles Bill. Just to put it in layperson's terms, the Tories, bless them, brought in a rule, a legacy law that said you cannot be prosecuted for what might have gone on in Northern Ireland or in active service. This is being changed by this Labour government. I'm going to try and stay calm. Every day I get angry. The lack of an inquiry into the child grooming thing does my head in. This is an absolute disgrace to ex-men and women who donned a uniform, put their lives on the line. A lot of them are living on the streets because illegal migrants are in their houses and they're living in the age of 70 for fear of prosecution, Mel Stride. This is an absolute disgrace, as bad as anything this government have done, in my humble opinion.
Well, and let's face it, Jeremy, they've done many inappropriate and wrong things, not least on areas like the economy, but you're absolutely right on this issue. We brought forward and brought into law the legacy bill on the basis that these people, our veterans, our brave people who in many cases paid the ultimate sacrifice, in many other cases put up with very significant hardship in the service of our country, should be protected from what in most cases is simply vexatious attempts to prosecute them. And this government have sort of thrown the door open, if you like, to that situation now, and it is totally and utterly wrong, and that is why we are resisting it.
Good. Let's talk economy. You are the man. You'll have to give me a bit of a lesson here. This government came to power telling us all about growth, and yet they've destroyed small businesses. We think of the hospitality region. We've got huge debts, billions being paid every month. Inflation yesterday rising from 3.2% to 3.4%, and yet they can find £35 billion from absolutely nowhere to give away some sovereign land to a country that's in China's pocket. We really are in a damn mess, aren't we, Mel?
We're in a complete mess, but it's a mess, Jeremy, of this government's making. They took the choices to put up taxes, particularly on businesses and on jobs. They took the choice to focus not at all on productivity, so gave all these wage increases to their trade union paymasters that have been part of the story of stoking inflation, and they took the choice to go out and borrow vast amounts of money, and we've seen that in the figures that were just released at 7 o'clock this morning, and go on a massive spending spree that has stoked inflation as well. And when you stoke inflation, what you see is interest rates higher for longer than would otherwise have been the case, and you've got this massive debt mountain. The servicing costs on that, Jeremy, alone now are running at twice what we spend on defence, and this is why we've got this weak, sluggish economy, unemployment at a 5-year high, inflation way above the Bank of England's target, when on the day of the last general election we had got it down to bang on target, and this is a result of this Chancellor's decisions. Now the question becomes, how do you move on from that? Well, you do it in a responsible way, making sure that you have an eye to that debt, making sure that any tax cuts you come forward are fully funded and you can justify how you're going to make those tax cuts happen. And we did that at our party conference, where we set out the savings. And I have to say, to come back to reform, if I may briefly, Jeremy, you've got there a party where the numbers do not add up, where it's all very well to say you're going to cut lots of taxes and spend lots of money, and spend more on welfare in certain areas, which is what they're saying. But they haven't got a clear plan as to how they're going to make those numbers add up at all, I'm afraid.
One of the things that I was critical about Kemi Badenoch, I don't know, sorry, was that there was silence for quite a while. Now it seems, there was a poll yesterday that said she's more popular than Farage. It seems that the message is getting through, and your argument is based very much on everything is costed, and it's easy to shout from the rooftops about we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But what the game the Tory party is playing, slowly but surely, to come back from the most hideous spanking, we know why, and all of you who are now on the front line know why. But the idea is to say, look, yes, mistakes were made. If I'm right, tell me otherwise. We're not going to jump. We're going to take our time. We're going to put policies that are properly and utterly tested, and we know that they make sense. You know, if I put this to you as the Shadow Chancellor, I hear, you said it just then, to service the debt, on the interest on the debt is billions of pounds a year. It's fiscal madness. They are a typical Labour government that spends more, takes out more than they put in. That's just how my old girl used to put it. I don't know where this ends, but it is fair to say, is it not, Mel, that every time we've had a Labour government, this country has been bankrupted, and they are showing themselves true to form to be doing that again.
Yeah, absolutely right. I've just run through a brief analysis which is basically about very high taxation coupled with very high borrowing and very high spending, leading to high inflation, a sluggish economy, and the kind of mess that we found ourselves in. And that is the Labour playbook. You know, they spend, Jeremy, until they run out of other people's money. That's basically the one thing you need to know about a Labour government. But equally, I've also given you a brief critique of Reform, who are promising a great deal but not doing the hard thinking as to how they're going to afford to pay for that, and that leads to its own problems. So you're absolutely right. We are the party that is forging a very clear path based on fiscal responsibility, so making sure that the numbers add up, that we recognise we can't go on living beyond our means. And I set out at our party conference £47 billion of savings, including £23 billion of savings in the welfare budget, getting people off benefits and into work. That's what we've got to do. And if you do that, then you do make the space both to bring the debt under control, but equally to cut taxes. And we announced that we would scrap the stamp duty on properties and get the property market going and people able to move around to where the work is, that we would effectively scrap business rates for tens of thousands of high street businesses up and down the country, give a £5,000 tax breaks for national insurance for young people in their first job. You can get taxes down, get the debt down, if you are fiscally responsible and control spending. And that's where the Conservative Party sits in this firmament of promises and economic mismanagement that you're seeing elsewhere.
Mate, we love having you on. We really appreciate your time. The scarf looks very hard man today, I have to say. Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor until break.
Just for you, Jeremy.
Ah, you're a good man. Mel Stride, thank you very much indeed. On the way, more about that veteran situation. Our reporter Samara Gill, roving reporter, talking to veterans yesterday in Westminster. So much anger about this. This government is actually actively going to prosecute men and women who donned our uniform to fight for Queen and King and country 35 years ago, whilst allowing the IRA to get away with everything and leaving them on the streets with migrants living in hotels. Morning, Sean. Morning.
This is Sean of Cheshire. I'm just listening to that about veterans. Being one myself, and I did 18 years, and I served in Northern Ireland once. Why, oh why, are the governments going after the easy meat, which is basically the doers of Northern Ireland? We only followed orders over there. So in actual fact, if you wanted to prosecute people for doing things over there, the way the chain of command works in the military, it started with the Queen, then it was the head of the MOD and the military forces. I said, we've got the Minister for the Armed Forces and whoever it is in the MOD that gives the orders. Then it comes down to like the leader of each one of the forces, the head of the RAF, the head of the Navy and the head of the Army. And then it comes down in a great big pyramid. So in reality, what we really need to be doing is finding out who at the top gave those orders, because remember, the buck stops at the top. The buck does not stop at the bottom. The people at the bottom only did what the people at the top told them to do. I'm infuriated because I too could get one of those bloody letters. Anyway, keep up the good work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 8. Busy Thursday here on Talk's home of common sense and free speech. You're waking up to the news that Donald Trump has, well, done a U-turn or just carried out a deal and got what he wanted in Greenland. Your thoughts on that? Starmer's off to China. You can have your embassy. Honestly, I'll be in your pocket. Just give me a trade deal. What about the security concerns? Out the window. The veteran story has gone ballistic. The legacy bill from the Tories protected servicemen and women from prosecution after the troubles in Northern Ireland. The Labour Party. It's not compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. I nearly said the wrong word again. So now you can be 70 and be sat there fearing for your life. We'll say a very good morning to our roving reporter, Samara Gill. Hello.
Hello, Jeremy. You've actually explained that so well, genuinely. I was really confused by what Labour was trying to do to abandon the people that defended this country, but that in a nutshell is exactly what it is. It's the ECHR coming in and destroying everything and putting the British people last once again.
And as Lucy says, so Starmer wants to go after veterans now. That's a bit bleeding rich. Last week he was asking them to get ready for war. He was saying to anybody over 65, we might need to call upon you. I said earlier, and I will repeat until they drag me from this studio, there are many things at the moment in this country that I think are stains on us. I think the post office scandal for many governments was a stain. I think this cover-up on so many levels over the grooming gangs inquiry is a stain. This is right up there. To say to men and women, thanks for putting your life on the line. Thanks for actually probably being traumatised with, PTSD for the rest of your life. But I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give everything we can to the IRA, who used to bomb people and kill them. Can we make that point? Or are we not allowed to? Is that not politically correct? But we're going to screw you veterans. And, by the way, you can be homeless because we're going to put migrants in front of you. Oh, and by the way, we'll probably put you in prison. You met some yesterday, didn't you?
I did meet some, and you just want to hear what they have to say. These are people who fought for this country, who, as you said, now face being prosecuted because of the Labour government. It is ridiculous.
Let's see this package. Let's see this, because this is brilliant work again. This is Samara yesterday with the veterans down in Westminster.
These guys have been standing out in the rain for over an hour already, protesting against something called a remedial order. What that means in pub English is if Labour vote this through today and then it goes through the Lords, it would have the practical effect of allowing civil prosecutions, often at the behest of Sinn Féin, to put some of these people in the dock for defending their country against IRA terrorists.
What would you have to say to Keir Starmer right now, the man in that building?
I'd say, as a lawyer, he should know all about fairness. This is not fair in the way that the government is treating Northern Ireland veterans. How can you prosecute veterans, people who are doing their job for the defence of our great nation, and yet all you do is drag us through the docks whilst you are protecting and giving immunity to IRA terrorists? It's wrong, it's not democracy, it's unfair, and we expect better from the British government. And Al Carnes, you should hang your head in shame.
I was one of the first victims of an IRA bomb in England. I was 18 then, 17 in Aldershot, and what I've seen here, a load of my colleagues have died, a lot of serious mental health issues, and we look at terrorists that walk free. You know, we're never going to get justice, we know that, but why should they?
The Conservatives are clearly behind you. How do you feel to have that support?
It's fantastic. It really is fantastic to have that support. We tried to engage with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, which turned out to be an interesting conversation, but that's it.
I want to make one really simple point, right? As Shadow Defence Secretary, is to say a massive thank you to everyone who served in Northern Ireland, right? Because when they did so, they put their lives on the line to protect the rest of us. And I'll tell you what, the least we can do, the least we can do as parliamentarians, is to vote to defend you after you defended us. That's my view.
How are you feeling going into this?
Look, it's a great opportunity to remind the government about the strength of feeling, not just amongst the veterans community, but in the public in general. Yeah, what's happening is totally unacceptable. We sent our bravest people to keep the peace in Northern Ireland. Without them, there wouldn't have been a peace process. And now the government is opening the door to them being run through the courts with vexatious litigation. It must be stopped. There's still time. Please write to your MP and let them know the strength of feeling in your community.
Well, there you go. That was the sentiment of those who are now going to go into Parliament and debate this out. We just hope that the veterans will be protected. It seems like it's not in the Labour government's interest or Keir Starmer's to do anything about it. He is actively putting some of these people behind me in danger if that goes through. Let's hope it's a positive outcome.
Time. Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having an election.
I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, Andrew, you know, you've got to do this to
So
me.
you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about wasting time when...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So from 8 o'clock, Dan Hodges will be on this show. And don't forget, from 9 o'clock, Robert Jenrick. They've all had him on, talking. We're getting him on to answer your questions. Ring Rob is on from 9 o'clock. Get your calls in straight away. 87222 on the text. You can leave a voice note. This is interesting. Morning, Jez. As a vet, I'm furious about this traitorous government. Looking at the voting, I'm also pretty bloody angry that Robert Jenrick, Nigel Farage and Richard Tice didn't vote. That's basically an I vote in my mind. Can you please ask Robert Jenrick, says David Hull, where the bloody hell were Reform last night? You saw all the Tories there on Samara. We had to cut us short. We're out of time. You saw James Cartledge, Shadow Defence Secretary, you saw Alex Burkhardt, you saw Mark Francois. Tories at the front of this. Where were Reform? Perfectly justifiable comment. 0344 419 1000. This veterans saga is absolutely dominating this morning. What the hell has happened to this country, Jez, when vets are getting prosecuted for the moral rights they fought for, and Sir Keir Starmer bangs on about this country being built on? What the hell has happened to the great in Great Britain? Mark in Birmingham. Jez Shane in Bournemouth. Is Starmer going to order Prince William to be prosecuted as well because he served in Afghanistan? No, hopefully just Harry. I shouldn't have said that. Right, listen, almost 8 o'clock. Dan Hodges, Mail on Sunday commentator, fantastic guy as well, will be with us after the news today. Keep those calls coming, those voice notes, sustain us throughout the show. Just remember, it's easy to get through to Christian. He's very good at what he does. Morning, Jay.
Jeremy, great show as always. Just want to point out, this is what I don't get with Starmer. This shows how stupid the man is when it comes to being a people person. OK, we might have to put British troops in the middle of Ukraine, even though they're part of NATO, and Uncle Vlad don't want that, does he? He's not happy about that. Anyway, long story short, let's throw this out there. 20 years from now, let's start prosecuting when the next Labour government potentially get in down the line. Hopefully it won't be for 50 years or ever again. Hopefully they'll just disintegrate. But let's start prosecuting all them troops we put in Ukraine that had to open fire after they got bombed out the ground. Like, 1 minute they want to prosecute the veterans. The next minute, we need you. We need you out on peacekeeping missions. Like, no one wants to fight for this government.
We reject! We reject! We reject! We reject!
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders!
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no major embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. It is a Talk Breakfast. It's Jeremy Kyle until 10. This is the home of common sense. It's where workers in Britain, the alarm clock Brits, come to have the say on the news of the day. You're waking up to loads of stuff. Donald Trump overnight. Some people will say U-turning. He's not going to invade Greenland and he's not going to instigate tariffs against the UK and other NATO regions because he says we've reached a future framework agreement. A lot of people, a lot of press are saying he's U-turned. Starmer and the rest stood up to him. Starmer didn't go to Davos. Actually, the truth is, in my opinion, you might disagree, it's the art of the deal in the terms of the way Donald Trump does business. Shouts and screams, makes lots of, challenges and threats because he knows exactly what he wants to get and walks away getting it. Did Europe get hoodwinked? What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. Starmer stood up in the Commons yesterday and said, I will not yield. But he was in Westminster, not in Davos. Which is interesting. He did, though, allow that Chinese super embassy to go through, and he is, in fact, giving the Chagos Islands away, and he is apparently off to China for a visit. I wonder how much involvement Donald Trump will have on those two things. But the story that is getting you, and quite rightly today, is the story about how this damn government feels it's justifying in treating our veterans. Let me just tell you a story, right? Men and women who went to Northern Ireland served amongst the bloody horror of 25, 30 years ago. And I'm old enough to remember car bombs going off, people being mutilated, the IRA at that point, horrible, horrible terrorist atrocities. We sent our men and women to fight. They did what they have to do, and I'm pretty sure that in those instances there will be, as I said earlier, clandestine things happening. The Tories, when these first murmurs of, can we bring a civil prosecution against a soldier because he pointed his gun at me 30 years ago? Did he? Probably a good thing. The Tories went, no, to their credit, we're having a bill, it's not happening. Sir Keir Starmer and his government have torn that up. They say it is incompatible with the ECH. Oh, Jesus. And so you have a raft of veterans across this country whose lives were probably decimated by what they saw. Many have PTSD, several are homeless, at 70 years of age are now living in fear of being prosecuted, which is being encouraged by a government, right? Let's have this out straight without wanting to upset anybody. With a government that won't do anything about a grooming gang inquiry, how young girls were raped and groomed by gangs because they're scared of upsetting a certain population in this country. This is a government, OK, that literally thinks it's OK to say to men and women who put their lives on the line, you lot live on the streets, we'll favour immigrants, and while we're at it, OK, we might put you in prison. And people wonder why people have no confidence. Morning, Trevor.
Morning, Jezza. Great show. Trevor from Milton Keynes, been on the road since 6 o'clock. So this crisis about the armed forces, absolutely ludicrous. I was speaking to my son, 20 years old, who's looking for a change of career. First of all, we talked about the police, as I'm ex-police. And I've sort of said to him, there's no way I'd go back into the police now with such a woke lack of decision-making and poor policing service. Then we talked about the armed forces. And his immediate reaction is, why on earth would I go and fight for this lot? And then I said, well, if there's a war, you might have to. He goes, I'd rather go to prison. There's absolutely nothing in this country at the moment that is worth fighting for, and it's getting worse and worse.
How does that sound? That is my point. How the hell does that sound? Let's bring in our next guest this morning. Always lovely to have him on as well. Commentator, Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges. A very good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning.
We can talk Starmer, we can talk Trump. I'm sure we'll talk about school kids. This veteran story will not go away, and I have absolute, total understanding as to why not. We have a government that is saying to servicemen and women, Dan, thanks so much for putting your lives on the line and being screwed mentally and probably physically. We know you're 70, but because this whole thing sort of sits uncomfortably with our human rights ideology and doesn't really fit in with the ECHR, we'll probably prosecute you lot and you'll probably end up going to prison. I'd love your take on this, because I think it's an absolute national shame. Another one.
Again, it's one of those ones where I'm scratching my head. I mean, I genuinely don't understand how we've reached this point. I mean, you were obviously talking about your personal memories of what people sort of euphemistically called the Troubles, and I obviously lived through the sort of tail end of those, well, actually a significant part of those as well. And I mean, you touched on the impact, and obviously very eloquently, on the impact on the individual servicemen, their families, the impact it'll have on them. But there's also a broader issue here, which is the point I don't understand, which was, I also was fortunate enough to live through the peace process. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it doesn't get a lot of credit for it, but famously started by John Major and then concluded by Tony Blair. And there was kind of an understanding at the time of the peace process that people had to make very, very difficult decisions, and people had to make very difficult concessions and sacrifices for peace, and that one of them was effectively that we just had to draw a line under, the appalling atrocities that were committed on both sides of the fence, let's be honest, at times, during that conflict, and that to have peace, we all effectively had to move on.
Completely agree.
And how we got into this situation where we're relitigating the events of that times. I mean, I think it was kind of in some way tied up in the Bloody Sunday inquiry. But the reality is, just as I said.
But Dan, the reality is
we would just move on from these.
And I get that, but the reality is, and the anger is not just at the gall of this. It's the imbalance actually is what's needed to be outed on this, right? You said it, and I thought you said it brilliantly. You just said, and I'm sure there are in hindsight rights and wrongs on both sides, but the IRA and terrorist organisations are not in the same position as our veterans are now being treated. And we can talk about the state of this world and where we're at. You heard that voice note. Why would anybody now sign up to represent a country that 30 years later can say, we know we gave you that order, we know we told you to behave in that way, but now we're going to prosecute you for it, just to bend down with respect at the altar of the ECHR? I think it's a terrible way to treat people, pal.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to be slightly careful of deploying the, I was only obeying orders sort of line of approach. We've obviously seen historically where that leads us. But as I said, the point was, as far as everybody involved in that conflict appeared to be concerned, a line had been drawn in the sand. A line was drawn in the sand at the point. Now, it wasn't, I think this is part of the issue, it wasn't official. Nobody stood up and said, right, everybody's got immunity from prosecution now for events that happened. But there was broadly an understanding that in order to deliver peace, everybody was just going to move on. And as I said, I don't understand. I mean, obviously, I understand for victims on both sides. I can understand why they if they have had relatives who were killed in this, why they want justice. But I think this is one of those issues where we have to look at the broader picture, and I do not understand in whose interests it is served by as I say, continuing.
Do you understand the anger from the veterans at 70? Let me read you this.
Yeah, of course.
He says, I'm 70, I'm a Northern Ireland vet of a number of tours of duty, a sad state of affairs when I'm trying to live off my basic pension. I'm now waiting for the damn door to be knocked. That's what he's saying.
And look, here's the other thing as well. These offences took place so long ago, or these alleged offences took place so long ago. I think it is highly unlikely any successful prosecutions are going to be brought in relation to any of these issues. It seems to me the only practical outcome of this will be, as you said, to instill fear into a significant number of veterans who were serving their country at that time, also thought that this was a period where we'd all moved on from, and actually were thinking, you know what, in my way, I actually did my bit for actually bringing the peace process about, and now, as you said, just waiting for the knock on the door every morning. I mean, who is it in whose interest?
And also, no, I'm with you. And also, what about this? I think this is also the point, Dan, which is the future. George says, imagine in the future our armed forces get engaged in a gunfight, Jez, and the conversation goes like this. Excuse me, Sarge, should I return fire? For God's sake, no, because if you hit somebody, somewhere down the line, you might go to prison for it. And I think that's also a very real reality from what is a mess, and this is all on the altar of the European Convention on Human Rights. Let's talk, if we can, about Trump. I had a great conversation with you last week about Trump. I have a feeling we might disagree, and I'm not sticking up for him because he drives me mad. The Greenland deal, many in the press are writing this morning, is a complete U-turn. He's U-turned on invading Greenland, he's U-turned on tariffs. And yet I sort of see it as the art, because I've read that book, the art of the Trump deal, which is to shout and scream and make loads of threats, and a bunch of patsy leaders who won't stand up to him face to face, not very often though, then give him exactly what he wants, which was never what he sounded out in the first place. He's got more of an involvement and control over a larger military base in Greenland. Bob's your uncle and home he goes on Air Force One. Thoughts?
Yeah, I am going to disagree on this one. I mean, I think this is part of the thing in relation to Trump, that if on those occasions he does get what he wants, he goes, aha, people say, ha, look at Trump, brilliant, he's got what he wants. And then when he doesn't get what he wants, people go, aha, it was all part of some masterful 3D chess art of the deal thing he was playing. I mean, the reality is that at the moment he has backed off. I mean, you're saying the art of the deal. What has he got in relation to Greenland? At the moment, he hasn't got what he clearly
set out for, yeah.
What he wanted. I mean, he was sending out videos only 24 hours ago of him planting a flag in Greenland, saying it was now American territory. So he's obviously backed off at the moment. The question is, with Trump, he's so volatile. I mean, frankly, I'm going to be completely honest with you. He's so irrational and deranged now that we don't know where he'll be in 24 hours. But on this one, and I've actually written it in the Daily Mail this morning. On this one, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to give Keir Starmer some credit. Finally, Keir Starmer did stand up to Trump and told him, no, I'm not going to back you.
He said, I'm not going to yield. I'm not going to yield.
I
said that at the beginning of the show. He did. He didn't do it face to face, though, did he? To be fair.
No, he didn't. No, absolutely. And I think on this one, Keir, never hear Keir. This would actually been one of the foreign trips. It would have been good for him to go on. But I think more broadly, I think this is the model that people need to adopt now. People have given Trump a chance. People have indulged him. It hasn't really got anyone anywhere. The reality is, it's not just Keir Starmer, but everyone in domestic politics. There's this sort of fetishization of Trump. You've seen Nigel Farage is always wandering around saying what great mates they are. We saw Kemi Badenoch thought she was going to be clever yesterday by raising Trump's criticism in relation to the Chagos Islands and outflank Keir Starmer, and it didn't work. And the reality it didn't work is the British people have. I think the British people have rumbled Trump. Right. At the beginning, he was quite funny, he was quite different, he was quite amusing. But if you saw yesterday, just, for example, his comments when he turned up in Davos, and he literally said, we won the war, it was all because of us. If it wasn't for us, you'd all be speaking German and Japanese. I happen to be saying that in a part of Europe where the majority of the population do actually speak German, just naturally. But the point is that we've had enough of this guy now. You know, like I said, it was funny at the beginning, and you know, and I make a serious point. If British politicians want to align themselves with Trump because they think his broad political agenda is aligned with them, fine. But they're going to get a shock because, like I said, the British people have had it with that.
Do you firmly believe that? Listen, I'm not an apologist for Donald Trump. There's plenty that I don't like about him. I will forever say to anybody, you included, that some of what he's done, the front that the man has, which of course alienates all the diplomats and many journalists, I wish we had more of that. I mean, we spent 10 minutes talking about veterans. Can you imagine Donald Trump, like him or loathe him, allowing veterans in the US forces to be prosecuted 30 years on? No, of course he wouldn't. And that, you know, that's the reason I threw the story at you this morning. I don't know whether the people are fed up with him. I'm sure many are. I should think there are several as well who would look and go, I wish we had somebody with the, I don't know, the front to do something about it. I mean, you complimented Starmer. I started the show by saying maybe we should give some credit, but he didn't go to Davos, did he? Didn't go to Davos at all. I'll tell you what I do want to ask you about Trump and the impact. Keir Starmer and the Chinese embassy, again, oh, that's it, ignore your security services, you can have it built. Everybody will say, you know, is it trade, are you in the pocket? Do you think Trump will jump up and down about that and about the Chagos giveaway? Do you think that will impact on British foreign policy on these two things at all, Dan?
No, I don't think Trump will, because, as I said, Trump is now, frankly, so random and irrational. I mean, we have to remember Trump initially warmly welcomed the Chagos deal, and the only reason he criticised the Chagos deal is because, you know, again, credit to fair play to Keir Starmer. Starmer said yes to try and pressure Starmer over Greenland. I think, but you're right about China, and this is the problem. Now we finally, as I said, credit where it's due, we've finally seen Starmer standing up to Trump. But Starmer needs to start to stand up to China as well. The Chinese embassy decision is absolutely ridiculous. We all know what that. We're talking about an embassy. It's not an embassy. You know, we on the Mail on the Sunday were the first to sort of break the story of the fact. You know, we got sight of the plans and the fact that there's, you know, this what's been called a spy dungeon would be installed in the place. It is going to be the primary espionage and surveillance hub for the Chinese state.
Then why has he agreed to it in your mind?
The reason why is, frankly, Britain is broke. Britain is broke. We're borrowing too much. We're spending too much. Starmer is going to China later this month. It will not be. In classical terms, a diplomatic visit. It will be a visit by someone who will be carrying around the begging bowl. He and Rachel Reeves.
But why don't you change your policies then and stop spending more than we've actually got?
Absolutely. And this is, and as I said, this is the contradiction that's starting to develop in relation to Starmer's policy. And this is something else I think we talked about and that I've written about. Starmer actually was given credit by a lot of people for his foreign policy approach, but this is the actual sort of broad reality of his approach. It's good that he was standing up to Trump, but that also demonstrates that his foreign policy approach, he was widely lauded as the Trump whisperer, the guy who understood his, you know, understood his ways. That's kind of fallen apart, and we're going to see it when Starmer does go to China. It's frankly going to be a pretty humiliating spectacle because, as I said, we're going to see a prime minister bending the knee to the Chinese because he needs Chinese investment.
And you would understand, Dan, I'm sure, that there will be people that will look at that and say, that's a dereliction of your duty. There is absolute definitive proof that China has spied, has real intent on several things across Europe and in the United Kingdom. And through your economic incompetence, Keir Starmer, you're going to go to a country that, frankly, a lot of people don't justifiably trust and get on your knees and beg. There's no... It's like the Chagos deal, right? £35 billion when we've got the debts we've got. You're going to give away a piece of land and you're going to give money to the Mauritian people who are quite close to China while we're at it, and they're not going to pay income tax for 16 months. Try explaining that to working Brits. It just makes no sense. That makes no sense. The Chinese thing makes no sense. The veteran bill, to me, makes no sense. And I look at this guy, and I know we would have different views on certain things, but it's great to chat and see all sides. I don't understand if it is really to just appear on the world stage as some sort of human rights guru. I think he's as humiliated internationally now as he is nationally. I just don't know. I don't know what makes Keir Starmer tick, Dan. I just don't.
No, well, I think last time I was on, I was saying I don't really understand what Keir Starmer is for anymore. I mean, as I said, even in relation to where I'm giving him credit for what he's doing on Trump, but that's the opposite of what his policy towards Trump has been up till now. And you're saying, why is he doing it? As I said, it's very obvious why he's doing it. He's doing it, as I said, because Britain is bankrupt. I mean, the great irony is, there's no secret about that, because if you remember, in the general election campaign and just before he came into power, Keir Starmer was telling everybody that would listen that Britain was bankrupt and had been bankrupted by the Tories. But his policy, since he's come into government, has been to say Britain is bankrupt and I'm going to spend even more money than they were. So that's why we've got this situation where, as I said, he's going cap in hand to China, and make no mistake about it, it's going to be a pretty embarrassing, I think, and humiliating national experience. No doubt we'll have lots of nice photos and people will say, oh, Keir Starmer's penetrated the bamboo curtain and, he's reaching out and yada, yada, yada. But the reality is the negotiations with China and the visit to China are going to be conducted on the terms of what is a pretty nasty regime. I mean, you were making the point at the start of this programme, it's, everything in relation to veterans is, dot every I, cross every T of the Human Rights Act. And now he's going off to China, glad having this, what is a pretty nasty, oppressive dictatorship.
And the country that builds all the windmills or wind farms, that's what Trump calls them. Dan, I love our conversations, mate. I really appreciate the time. I know you're a busy man. We'll get you on next week as well. Dan Hodges, thank you, commentator at Mail on Sunday. Great piece from the Mail today, 8:23. We're live across the UK. JK till 10. Robert Jenrick defected from the Tories to Reform last week. Much furore. Lots of people had him on. Julia, great interview with him. I wanted to do it differently. From 9 o'clock, you can ring Robert Jenrick. You can text Robert Jenrick. He will answer everything. I mean, anything. Have a watch.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer. Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having elections.
I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to Reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, Andrew, you've got to do this to
So you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about wasting.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and man on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Robert Jenrick here from 9 o'clock. Layla Cunningham, who will, if I have anything to do with it, be the next mayor of London, and Khan will be at the door. CJ, this Labour government should be done for being traitors to our country. Our service personnel should not only be praised for their heroic actions, they shouldn't be sitting there worrying about a knock on the door. Get this mug government out as soon as possible. Steve, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. This is Stephen Hartz. As an ex-Grenadier Guardsman, I don't know which letter I'm looking forward to the most. The one summoning me to court or the one ordering me to return for duty. Well, I got a message for Keir Quisling, the fella who spent his gap year working behind the Iron Curtain, volunteering for the Soviet Union. You can get stuffed. Have a good day, Jez.
Good man. Morning, Jez. Happy to be corrected, but I seem to recall that members of the IRA received letters of comfort protecting them from prosecution as part of the peace process. So if this government is prepared to sell its Northern Ireland veterans down the Bleeding River, then surely those letters should be rescinded, says Nicola in Norfolk. So much anger on this morning. Jeremy. History will be the judge on this government, and particularly Keir Starmer. They will be judged as the worst government in history, and Starmer was seen as the UK's first dictator, a weak, pathetic man full of hate for our armed forces, hate for our women, our children, the working classes and our country, and above all else, he will be seen as the biggest traitor. Steve in Essex, come on, Jezza, this veteran nonsense is solely about Starmer opening a new cash cow for his human rights lawyer friends. Couldn't agree more. Morning, Jez and team. Great show as usual. The prosecution of our ex-military. What does this actually do? Scare the vets and stop the new recruits. Crowborough is going ahead. Migrants moving in soon. Well, those cadets won't have a need to train for anything. As every other cadet, no one wants a job when you might be sued for it later, says Tash in Bexhill. Jez, Dan Hodges saying it was atrocities on both sides. So did the British Army blow up places? I was a young man and lost good mates in Belfast, and I find Hodges' comments insulting to those young men who were murdered by the IRA. Hello to Dale Peacock. Loving the way you say it. I was desperate as a youngster to join the armed forces. I got through all the interviews, all the medical tests, and I was ready to go. In fact, just a week away. However, I broke my hand and everything got delayed. I never went in. And you know what, Jez? Looking back now, I'm absolutely delighted. Sean in Bridlington, good morning. Like the Chagos debacle, this anti-veteran move by Starmer is designed to please and feather the nest of his left-wing ambulance-chasing lawyer mates and is an absolute disgrace. And I'll leave it after this one because this will get you thinking. Keith, didn't Prince Harry boast about killing 25 enemy combatants? My father was a 20-year veteran and was part of the D-Day landings as a 16-year-old kid, Jez. He never spoke about it. He served in Palestine, in Malaysia and in Germany. He would be turning in his grave. Keep the calls coming. So much. Oh, David Hull. He says, I'm furious with this government. So many people. My God. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Yes, sorry about the snotty nose, but, you know, wanted to have the day off, but always remember me mum. I've had pneumonia in the Second World War and I'll, you know, in an air raid shelter. Get to work, you lazy git. 8:30. Great article this morning in The Sun, page 10 by Ross Clark. Our dead weight army. Ross, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Fine.
The headline is Our Dead Weight Army. And before we talk in detail about your facts, that there are more people jobless than there are in our armed forces by a long way. Your response to this veterans saga this morning, there's real anger, mate. I don't think I've felt this anger from people to the show. Disgusting move by the Labour Party, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is outrageous. I mean, if you're going to have a peace deal and the principle is, you know, forgive and forget, we'll, you know, brush over past offences in the name of peace, then it's got to apply to both sides, hasn't it? And, you know, it's the one-sided nature of this which is so offensive that, as you say, the letters of comfort that were provided for IRA terrorists saying they would not be prosecuted, or the releases from prison we had. OK, if that's what it takes to achieve peace, then maybe that's what we had to do. But then to chase the British Army, British soldiers who were trying to keep the peace in these hugely difficult situations, you know, it is disgusting to go after those people.
Great headline, Our Dead Weight Army. Britain's jobless. includes 584,000 people aged 16 to 24. Why not get some of them into the actual army? You say that imagine if Britain had a regular army of 4 million rather than the 74,000 personnel serving. What's your argument overall? Because would the army want jobless, feckless young kids, really? Would they?
I don't think people are necessarily congenitally feckless. I mean, you know, somebody might be feckless at the moment, but it doesn't mean they can't be reformed and given useful work and so on. But I mean, this comes off an incredible statistic that there are over 4 million people now claiming universal credit without any requirement even to look for work. And worse, this has grown by over 1 million in the past 12 months alone. And you remember when this government came to power, it was all going to reform welfare. We were going to zero tolerance of fraudsters claiming welfare. We were going to have people put back to work and not so, you know, not being able to claim that they're suffering from anxiety and so on. And, you know, what's happened in the interim? There's just been a massive explosion in the number of people who have been parked on benefits and not even required to look for work, which is a huge dead weight on the economy. And yeah, you know, you think of, we're spending, you know, £330 billion a year on benefits. We're you know,
let's just look at that,
vastly
because
more than we spend on defence. And you think,
yeah, I'm so with you. Let's just imagine what Ross Clark just said. And he's right, £330 billion on benefits. We have a government that is, in my humble opinion, raising taxes and spending it all on benefits. Keir Starmer tried to knock, and I quote, 5 billion off the benefits bill, and his own backbenchers took him to task, and it ended up at zero. I've got a different theory to yours, but it's along the same lines as the army and you. I've forever been told, and I'm old, so I'm allowed this opinion, Ross, that we needed to allow people to come into this country unfettered, because all those jobs like, you know, hospital porters and those sort of menial jobs needed filling. Well, when we've now got 4.2 million people on universal credit, and before the people who are genuinely mentally ill and disabled ring me, we know that, but I think we'd all agree, right, that not everybody is that. There are those who are gaming the system or having it as a career or whatever. I would get those bloody people, Ross, a bit like you in the army, to do something for their community. I don't know whether it's join the army, cut an old lady's grass, give something back for the money we're paying them, which also gives them something on their CV and the motivation to get out of bed and the belief that they're part of something. I've said that for ages. So, in effect, I wouldn't go down the army way, but I agree with you, because where does it lead? What are you saying to people? You can choose to do nothing and we're not going to check up on you.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a fascinating experiment was carried out in the latter days of John Major's government in the 1990s, which is broadly described as workfare. There were 2 pilot areas, and the government then said, well, you know, said to the particular group of people, well, after 6 months, we're going to give you a work placement. If you don't take it up, we're going to cut your benefits. And you know what happened? There was a huge increase in the number of people who got jobs as a result of this, but there was also just a huge reduction in the number of people claiming benefits.
Yep.
And what does it tell you? That there was sort of mass fraud possibly going on. People were claiming benefits when actually they were working. Well, maybe they didn't exist. You know, we've had this sort of Bulgarian gangs, haven't we, claiming benefits for fictitious people or people who don't even live in the country.
54 million that Bulgarian network got in benefits. They did 3 years in prison, and they're now back out somewhere and getting 30-something grand a year of universal credit for doing nothing. It's ludicrous. And there can't be, not because we're about alarm clock Brits, Ross, but we can't go on. And some people you didn't like the phrase feckless, but this is me being straight. When I left school, you went to college, university or work. I don't care if this is unpopular. We've made a benefit system that I think was the greatest invention in the modern world, so that all of us who are genuine people will help those who can't help themselves. And I'll nail my colours to that mast forever. But I am sick to death, as are millions of people in this country, about living my life correctly and going to work so that people can sit on their backsides and take advantage. And that was never what it was meant to be about. It can't have ever meant to be about that.
No, of course it wasn't. And I mean, fathers of the modern welfare state will be absolutely horrified the way what it has become. And of course, you know, we've got to sort of break this link between just shunting people off and not asking them to work. We've got to re-establish a link between work and earnings, and you know, stop giving money to people to be idle and say, you know, okay, you're unemployed, you're finding life tough, but here is an opportunity for you. Here is a job for you. Here's a work placement for you. You turn up, we'll pay you. You'll get some experience. It might not be the best job in the world, but it will be a basis on which you can then look for better work, build a career. And you know, for so many years, and it's not just the Labour government, but the Tories before them, the coalition before that, they've all been sort of just so lax on this, just so accepting of you know, the benefit system as it is, and just writing people off. And you know, maybe those Labour MPs who opposed that, even those sort of £5 billion of welfare cuts, maybe they thought they were being kind. I'm sure they thought they were being kind. There is nothing kind about shunting people off onto benefits and depriving of them of that sort of start in their working life.
Sometimes, do you know why I completely agree with you? I don't know whether they're kind, they think they're being kind, or they're stupid, but just occasionally, right? Let's be perfectly honest and say, occasionally you need to kick people up the backside. It's a great article today. Have to move on, but Ross, thank you. Ross Clark, great article, Our Deadweight Army, page 10 in The Sun today. I don't think I've heard such anger, genuinely. Jez, this government wraps itself in the flag whilst treating servicemen and women like an inconvenience. Broken promises, broken kit, broken aftercare, but plenty of money for everything except those who actually defended our country. Jez, loving the show. I fear this will not just stop at veterans who served in Northern Ireland. This could well open the floodgates for every other campaign around the world that British Armed Forces have ever been involved with. It won't stop here. Two-tier Keir strikes again. Paul, a military veteran, former police service in Cornwall. Good morning to you. And I'm going to go to this break with this. Jez, so technically, says Pat, if you don't die serving your country, we'll sue your bleeding arse when you come back alive. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm very happy Alicia has walked into Studio 1 here at Talk Towers, 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. Jez, yet again, Dan Hodges is bleeding wrong. I and most people I know would welcome Trump being in charge of our country. He puts his country first, unlike Starmer, who puts Britain last. He's a weak, dangerous leader, says Anthony. Morning to Margaret. No, Dan, we have not had enough of President Trump from day one. One of the most of the British people I know love him. Strong leader who puts his country first. Morning, Jez. Enjoying the show, says Carolyn Shoreham-on-Sea, but pity the content is so frightening and depressing. I have just one question. Why? Why is this wicked, vile, lying, completely incompetent bunch of shambolic, inadequate politicians destroying our country and its people? I want to know the reason for their actions. They are appalling. Listen, Carol, that's like, if you knew that, you'd be the cleverest person in the world. Let's just, for Carol, OK, who thinks it's depressing, let me give you some good news, Kaz. Honestly, you could go to San Francisco. Forget all the crap that's going on in the United Kingdom. This is a fantastic trip of a lifetime. We're going to throw in a 3-night stay at a 4-star hotel, £2,500 in spending money. Tickets, get this, to the Super Bowl. Still don't understand American football, but it is unbelievable. Have a listen.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343-418-7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Welcome back. Brilliant. I got caught out. 20 minutes to 9. They've waited 9 days. Has it been 9 days? Jamie's in Glasgow. Listen to this. I recently filled out an application for the army as I have an HGV licence and would like to serve my country at the same time. But yesterday, Jez, I rescinded the application. You serve and what do you get? Homelessness, PTSD, left by the wayside and probably imprisonment. Wow. Karen Brazier. Morning, JP. Jezza and JP. We need a list of MPs who voted the disgraceful Veterans Bill ill. Name and shame them. More ammo for reform. Well, I'll tell you what I have got. Sorry, it's not going to be very popular with certain people. I've got a list of those who didn't vote. So this bill was created by the Tories to give protection to servicemen and women who fought, served, whatever you want to say, in Northern Ireland. Now, we were very critical of the Tories, quite rightly so, and that is why Labour, this shower, got in. Labour has decided, for people just tuning in, that they're going to change this Troubles Bill and allow, because in their words, it's not compatible with the ECHR. Really. He and his human rights lawyers friends are going to pursue veterans who might be 70, men and women, who fought for their country, and knock on their door and prosecute them for what might happen, whilst the IRA have immunity. So I will name and shame politicians, and you will be amazed, who didn't bother to go to the Commons yesterday and vote against this heinous bill. Heidi Alexander, Transport Secretary. Al Khan's Labour Security Defence Minister. Yvette Cooper, she's going to say, I'm in Davos. Before people say that, by the way, you can get somebody to vote for you. Ed Davey, that just about sums it up. Nigel Farage in Davos, you're not going to escape this. Dan Jarvis, the Defence Minister. Robert Jenrick. Robert Jenrick, I'll be asking him that after 9. Darren Jones, the idiot who said the boats are full of women and men. Liz Kendall. Oh, right, so most of the cabinet. This will shock you. Rupert Lowe? Sorry, I'm on one this morning. I thought Rupert Lowe, like Nigel Farage, was all about Great Britain. Well, why are you not protecting our armed forces then, Rupert Lowe? You should have been there. Lisa Nandy, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Well, if it walks like an MP and looks like a bloody MP, you should be doing the right thing. Priti Patel? Ex-Foreign Secretary? What's happening? Rachel Reeves. I was in Davos. Wes Streeting. You want to be the leader of this country, do you? Rishi Sunak, let's have it, shall we? Rishi Sunak, you didn't vote. You represent what? Richmond and Northallerton, a major military area up there in Yorkshire. Tom Tugendhat, ex-security minister. And I'm not being horrible to any of them. They might well ring me up now and say, well, I couldn't get there. I believe, and I could be wrong, that you can pair up against somebody so that it balances out in terms of voting. But we're talking about our armed forces. We're talking about men and women who put themselves out there and went to war or put themselves in a situation in Northern Ireland where they could have been bombed to death, and we're given immunity to the IRA, and we're going to screw our own veterans, according to Labour. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. In a couple of weeks, I'm going down to Lincoln to meet up with a good few of my old friends who I served in the army with, who I haven't seen in a long time now. These men are top men, patriots, lovers of Great Britain and England. Yet our own government, it seems to be, if you're an Egyptian national who hates white people, you're welcome with open arms. If you're a Greenlander, the government's got your back. If you're a pro-Hamas terrorist, the government's going to look after you and support you. If you're unemployed and you can't be bothered to do anything, this government's got you, mate. Got you. But if you're a former soldier who served in Northern Ireland, but you have to be sent there by the government, then we're going to prosecute you. And you know what, mate? Right? You know, if there's a war, they can shove it where the sun don't shine, mate. Rant over, or I am miffed today, mate, let me tell you.
Don't blame you, Sam says. I know the military aren't allowed to go on strike, but perhaps they should. What would the government do? Send in the army to sort it out? Wow. Michael, morning, Jez. Mike here. I can see the motive behind taking away the protections of the British shoulder. It's to put the blame on the serviceman and woman rather than the government that sent them into conflict. It's about protecting the politician above everything else. I know, I realise, but they've decided that I can be recalled until I'm 65, which is another 7 years. Good luck with that, because I wouldn't give them the time of day. I don't think I've seen such anger since I started this show. Jez, Starmer wants to conscript us into the army. No thanks. Would I have fought for this country in world wars? Hell yes. Would I fight for this traitorous government now? No. I would fight them if it tried to force my child to fight for them. This government doesn't look after its own. It makes my bloody blood boil. Tim, UK veteran. Starmer has just destroyed our military, our recruitment, his reservists. He can F off. We'd love to meet him in the pub. Interestingly, the PM is the ultimate commander. Is he going to be prosecuted too? Wow. Let's go stateside. Donald Trump overnight selling his... Some people said it capitulation in Greenland. Others said the art of the deal. There's only one person to ask. Arizona Morning News. Kate R. Phoenix. Good morning, LaDonna Harvey. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good, Jeremy. How about you?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you. Bit of man flu, but as I said at the beginning of the show, I used to get no sympathy from my mother, who would say something along the lines of, yeah, and I had pneumonia in an air raid shelter in the Second World War. You're going to school today. So I've sort of lived by that mantra. Donald yesterday dropping his threat to invade Greenland, dropping his threat to impose tariffs on the UK and Europe after reaching what he called a future framework for Greenland. Now here, they're split. Some are saying U-turn, capitulations, blah, blah, blah. The stuff at home means he wised up. Others are saying, art of the deal. This is the man. Threatens everything. Everybody goes, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. And he walks away with an increased sovereignty over the military situation in Greenland, gets on Air Force One, goes sod you and goes back to the United States. Thoughts?
Well, you know what? It could go either way. We already had quite a bit of latitude militarily in Greenland. So, you know, I've never really quite been able to piece together what it is we think we're doing or going to do under that giant ice cap of nothingness that is that island. There was a treaty in 1951 that pretty much allows us to do anything we want militarily, thanks to us bailing out Denmark in World War II. So, you know, was this another case of Donald has one hand over here and it's doing this thing, and then he's got this other hand over here and he's doing this thing? Pardon my man hands. I swear they're not that big. I don't know.
Your hands are great. I listen. It's fascinating, and it's, you know, we had Dan Hodges on, a columnist over here, a top man, a commentator from the Mail, saying no, we're done with him. People realise he just shouts from the rooftops, and we have others going, no, Dan, you're wrong. This man, I mean, you know, we had Sir Keir Starmer finally standing up to Donald Trump, but didn't have the balls to Donald to go to Davos. He stood up in the House of Commons and went, I will yield. You would know him better than me. I sort of feel with Donald Trump, you need to go and face him out and tell him. And even if he would spend a lifetime disagreeing with everything that's coming out of your mouth, there'd be this sort of grudging admiration that you've told him the truth to his face.
Sure. I mean, I think, as with anybody who is, that kind of a blustery personality, and he does have that blustery personality, and not a criticism, it's just an observation. You have to be like a PM Carney from Canada and absolutely excoriate the guy. And then you take your chances on what it is he's going to do back to you, because Donald is very thin-skinned. He's got some very thin, delicate skin, and he does not like it to be marred by other people. So you will expect, once you've stood up to that particular person, that you're going to get something in return, and it might not be something that you like very much, but at least you will have done it if that's how you feel about things.
Let's just ask you quickly about domestically, because quite a bit in the papers this side of the pond, LaDonna, about how, Americans a year and are going, well, you promised us more jobs, lower prices, gas at the pumps, food in the shops, and you've saved, you've ended 5,640 wars, and you've now got Europe dancing in your hand. But are the American people starting to question the priorities of Donald Trump?
So it depends on what side of Donald Trump you find yourself on.
Yeah.
I do not believe that if you are a hardcore Donald Trump MAGA voter, that you are disappointed in him at all. I think he's done exactly what it is that you think he ought to do, and anything that he hasn't done, well, there have been people who get in his way. I think that if you hate Donald Trump, you still hate the guy. And if you're one of those middle-of-the-road voters, and there were quite a few who thought, out of the two, I think I'm going to go for this guy, I think there are mixed feelings about how we appear on the world stage, and also what's happening domestically with, prices and inflation and things like that. So just pick your favorite political corner and go stand in it. That's the answer.
So love having you on. It's far too quick. I'm going to come to Phoenix and do the show from your house. Thank you so much indeed. LaDonna Harvey, K-Star Phoenix, live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast. 0344 499 1000 and the text message 87222. Robert Jenrick recently defected, the ex-shadow Justice Secretary, I should say, who joined Reform. And listen, Julia did a great interview with him, many others as well last week. He's for you, though. I'm not speaking. You can ask Robert Jenrick whatever you want. 87222. He will answer it. This story on veterans is going nowhere. Morning, John.
Morning, Jezza. John in Suffolk. I'm absolutely seething. Let's not forget there was a former Labour Prime Minister who forged a war in Iraq, which was proven to be on dodgy information. Meanwhile, his wife's chambers started a crusade against those that were fighting there. I did some very nasty things in my service. With more than 30 years of service, I found myself in horrible places. This is a non-stop wheel of bringing British servicemen before the courts instead of addressing the actual faults and reasons why we were there in the first place. Great show, Jezza. I'm just seething. Sad day. Bye now.
Time. Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. I do believe that economies can be fixed, and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 5 to 9. So, Ring Rob is on from 9 o'clock, 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Layla Cunningham, hopefully the next Mayor of London, will be here before 10 o'clock as well. Right now, let's push the button, Marky, please.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Very good morning to Martin Lipton, Chief Sports Reporter for The Sun. Martin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, all well.
Wish I had more time. Liverpool, great result in the Champions League last night against Marseille. They seem to be back on track. Chelsea squeaking through under Liam Rosenior, 1-0 against a team I've never heard of, Paphos.
Yeah, I mean, all three English clubs won last night. In fact, they've got 5 of the top 8 at the moment in the Champions League table, and the top 8 all go through automatically to the second knockout round, which is quite impressive. Liverpool, really good performance. Mo Salah back, having been away on African duty. We know he was felt a bit of a fallout with Arne Slot. A really good performance in the most passionate and vibrant atmosphere in French football in Marseille. So that was a really good win for them, and they're fourth in the table now and will qualify if they in that top 8 if they win the game next week. So it's really good, and it shows the enduring strength of the Premier League.
That's absolutely true. 5 out of 8. I watched my second team, Newcastle, destroy PSV Eindhoven. They could have won by a lot more. Bruno Guimaraes was off, but we'll know more about that. But, yeah, the English teams look quite good. Spurs is an interest to me. You know, Sunday it was all about he's going to be sacked. He beats Borussia Dortmund 2-0. Suddenly he's a genius. Why are they so much better in bloody Europe, Spurs, than they are at home? It's a mystery to me.
Probably because they're playing against weaker teams. Dortmund are second in the Bundesliga, but they were really quite a weak side. They were Villarreal, who are third in Spain, a second bottom of the European table. There is something about that. There's a lack of physicality in the European teams. Spurs were better on Tuesday, and I was there. As you know, I'm a Spurs fan, and we've been awful, and he deserved to. He's lucky to have kept the job as long as he has. That win bought him time, no question.
Does he stay now? Does he go? I mean, there seemed to be Man United are at an interim stage. Many people were saying Frank will go. There will be an interim manager till the end of the season. As a fan, what do you make of that?
I think it's still borrowed time. If they lose to Burnley on Saturday, it'd be very hard for him to stay on. It's almost now result by result. He's a really good man. He's a really good manager. It hasn't worked, but first 45 minutes on Tuesday were good.
That's the thing, isn't it, with football now? And I get it. You know, they talk about projects. They talk about coming in and making something work and changing the DNA of a club. Every successful person, look at Arteta at Arsenal. He's had 6 years. Yes, if he doesn't win something this year, I think he's a goner. But every single club that's ever got anywhere has invested in a manager and gone through the lean times. But it doesn't happen anymore because of money, really, and results and the fans, right?
Well, fans want to be entertained. One of the problems for Frank at Spurs is they've been awful to watch.
Yeah.
The home form has been really poor. They haven't been exciting. It's been dull. And if you're paying 80, 90, £100 a pop for your one bit of entertainment and release, you don't want to be bored out your box, do you?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Martin, thank you so much indeed. Good luck to Spurs. West Ham have got Sunderland at the weekend. That'll be fun. A couple of minutes to 9. So Robert Jenrick defected to reform last Thursday. Such a hoo-ha. Lots of people have spoken to him. But we are wanting him to speak to you. You can ring Rob right now. It's 0344. It's 499 1000 for those voice notes. You can leave a text message, a question there on 87222. Whatever you want to speak to Robert Jenrick about, you can do it. And after him at about 9:45, Layla Cunningham, Reform's mayoral candidate for London. All of that coming up on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. We'll do the news at 9 and then Robert Jenrick live in the studio.
Cheers, Russell Hertfordshire here. The Queen was still alive. I doubt that this stupid, treacherous government would get away with half the things it's getting away with now. I think she would have put her foot down and told them where to go. Good one, Jezza. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Where we need to.
UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. It's the Talk Breakfast Show with the man with the snotty nose, and we're very delighted to welcome a man who was like everywhere in the news a week ago, and it wasn't difficult to get hold of him. But Robert Jenrick, welcome to the show.
Very good to be here again.
We wanted to do it differently. You had to do all of this ream of interviews. You were here with our own Julia last week, but what I know you've always been keen to do is to deal with viewers and listeners head on.
That's right.
And the one thing that I will say about Robert is, in the next 45 minutes, he's quite happy to take your questions. 0344 499 1000. I have to do this. I've told you this briefly. Last night, I mean, the real debate today is about the veterans.
Yes.
I mean, this disgusting, you know, the bill the Tories brought in to protect our armed forces, men and women who fought in the Northern Ireland process, and it was horrible. It seems now that this government are protecting the IRA, who have letters of "you'll be fine," and yet our veterans who are 70 are in danger of being screwed over, which is revolting.
That's right.
You didn't vote on it last night, mate.
No, in Parliament there's something called being slipped, which is where you pre-agree with the whips that you got something else and you can't do it. But I have and will continue to campaign on this. I mean, it's a terrible situation. Essentially, the last Conservative government took a very long time to pass a bill which granted a degree of immunity to the brave men who fought in the period of the Troubles, so they didn't have to spend the last days of their lives being hauled through the courts or waiting for a letter to drop on their doormat, telling them that they were now in danger. And the Labour government, for reasons I think none of us can fathom, have decided to unwind that.
Did somebody vote for you, or am I misunderstanding Parliament? Don't you do a twin thing?
Unfortunately, that doesn't happen very much these days, and certainly no one is willing to do that for Reform MPs.
Right, OK, Nigel, but I mean, everybody knows I've been accused. I'm not just pro-reform, I've had Conservative, I've had them all on this morning. Let me tell you as a voter, the veteran thing is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Wayne, on voice note, you got a question for Robert, go.
So, quick question for Robert. If reform didn't exist, would you have done what you've done, and would you have left the Conservative Party, or would you have stayed and try to change it? I like you as an MP. I think you're a great communicator. However, I kind of want to know morally where you stand, because was reform an easy switch, or have you completely lost faith in conservatism?
Good question. Well, it's not easy. I mean, leaving a political party is a very hard thing to do, and it's a lot of people can't appreciate that if you're not involved in politics, but it's like supporting a football team. It's tough to leave your friends and the fellow supporters that you've been part of, and also there's really, really kind people who've helped you over the years in your local constituency. So nobody does this lightly. That's why hardly anyone does do it in practice. But I have lost faith in the Conservative Party. I don't trust them fundamentally on immigration and some of the big important questions of the day. If reform didn't exist, might I have stayed with them? Perhaps. Probably, because I want to keep on ultimately trying to make arguments, trying to make the country a better place. And if that was the nearest political party to my views, then I would have stayed with it. But that isn't the choice anymore for people across the country. There is something new and fresh, unsullied by the terrible record in government, and by and large made up of people who share my views, my values, and want to fix the country.
Mary's a Conservative voter, and she basically is in Canterbury, and she says there's two things she wanted to ask you. One was she believes that you did this for personal ambition because Kemi Badenoch's position was, we'll make sure we say it right, was stronger, and that's why you've left. And how do you react 2 days after joining Reform to see that Kemi Badenoch in the latest opinion poll is more popular than Nigel Farage? Good question from Mary, to be fair.
Well, look, I am ambitious. I'm not going to hide that. Most people in the country are ambitious. I'm ambitious to be part of a team of people who actually want to fix the country. And that is what Reform is. It's a group of people who think that Britain is broken, that things are in a mess, but don't believe it's broken beyond repair, and want to get together, set out to try and win the next general election and turn things around. And I want to be part of that. I'm
unashamed to say that. Why else go into politics if not to try and make a difference, have the biggest contribution you can to the country, and try and turn this thing around for my kids, for my constituents, for everybody in the country. Look, I think the Tory party it has made a tiny amount of progress, but the honest answer is, and I don't mean this in any way disrespectfully to Kemi, the Tory party is less popular today, and Kemi is less popular today than they were a year ago.
Yeah.
And that was
Have you spoken to us since last Thursday?
I haven't done, no. And that was after their worst ever election defeat.
Yeah.
The Tory party today there's some good people in it, but it's basically irrelevant. The next election is going to be a straight choice. Do you want Keir Starmer or whoever replaces him as leader of the Labour Party and Labour, or do you want Nigel Farage and Reform? And there'll be a lot of people agonising over that choice, worried about their long-standing party allegiances. Maybe Mary will be one of those, someone who's voted for the Tory party for a very long time. But that's going to be the fundamental choice.
Yeah.
And I know where I stand on that. I want to get rid of the Labour government. I want to have something new, a government to the centre-right that can actually fix the country. And the only way to do that, I am certain, will be to vote Reform.
Brave to make that decision and believe in it. Let's go to Bolton. Got a phone call. Tristan, you're through to Robert Jenrick, sir.
Hello, good morning, both. It's about the Northern Ireland thing. I'm an ex-serviceman. I did 8 tours of Northern Ireland, ranging from West Belfast, Armagh City, Dungannon, and Cookstown. I think it's ridiculous what the government are coming out with. That, on the one hand, they want to take people like myself to court for doing things that we did for the governments of the time, and on the other hand, they want us to serve again till we're 65. The man's having a laugh. I wouldn't do anything for him. I wouldn't. I think he's a weasel. I wouldn't follow him anywhere.
I don't think, Rob, I've got to be honest with you, I've done this a while. I don't think I've ever heard such anger as there is from veterans this morning, and it's totally understandable.
It's almost like treachery, isn't it? How can your own government do this to you?
Yeah.
You put your life on the line. You served in Northern Ireland during the most difficult period. You were trying to stop terrorists attacking everyone, frankly, and keep the peace there. And then a lifetime later, you suddenly find out that you're going to be hauled before the courts for something that you thought was perfectly legal at the time. And the point
that you were told to do, by the way, by the government of the day.
And you were told to do by your superiors and the government of the day.
Yeah.
And the other point, which is well made there, is imagine you're a young man or woman, it is mostly men today, and you're thinking of signing up to, say, the Special Forces.
Why would you do it?
Why would you do it? Absolutely. If you thought you'd go and do something very dangerous for your country, and 50 years hence, you could be sat in your armchair,
absolutely,
in a care home somewhere, watching telly, and someone brings in a letter saying, from some left-wing lawyer, saying, sorry, mate, you're now going to be hauled through the courts, lose your life savings on legal bills, and have the last days of your life ruined. It is a total and utter disgrace.
Peter Hanlon. Hi, Jez. Hi, Rob. Peter from Shrewsbury. My dad died in '84. I was so proud of him in his 23 years of service in the army, some of it in Northern Ireland. I miss him and think of him every day. Never have I been ever so grateful that my dad's dead, so that he wouldn't sit there every day in his home worrying about a knock on the door. This is utterly heinous by this government.
Yes, I did a video.
Can I tell you? Yes. Labour argued that this to me, this is the anger. It's incompatible with the ECHR.
Yeah.
But my God, but the IRA are protected.
Right, but even that is not correct. Look, when the bill was subject to it's quite complicated, but the bill was subject to a legal case in the courts in Northern Ireland, and the government lost. But the government didn't even bother to appeal. And I went to talk to some of our most eminent lawyers, and they all believed that if the government had taken it to the Supreme Court here, it would have been found compatible with the ECHR. So even setting aside the debate, you know my views on that, I think we should leave the ECHR. It's completely absurd that our own servicemen and women should be, being litigated over matters in a court in Strasbourg. But even setting that to one side, the government didn't even bother to appeal this in our own court, and I'm certain that, or very confident that they would have won. Why? Obviously, they don't care that much, do they? They're literally putting the rights of terrorists above those of our armed forces. I went to meet, I did a video about this last year, an elderly gentleman who's living at the Royal Hospital, a Chelsea pensioner.
Yeah.
And
I saw this.
He explained to me the situation that he was in Northern Ireland back in the day. And, you know, it's a split-second decision. I think he was 18 or 19 years old. You know, a split-second decision.
Yeah.
You know, we all have to put ourselves into those men's shoes.
But
These are immensely difficult situations.
War, and if you're faced with a car bomb or somebody with a Kalashnikov in your face, you might not make a decision.
He was being ambushed by a group of terrorists. Yeah. Well, I think one of them had like a sort of bazooka or an RPG or something. It's like, these are bad people. We should have these people's backs. We should be celebrating these men.
Susie Ferguson, can you ask Robert quickly if Reform have forgotten about Northern Ireland? I always hear them talking about England, Scotland and Wales, but never Northern Ireland. Do they plan to stand candidates here? Really good question.
I don't know the answer to that.
It's honest.
Most political parties,
I don't either.
Most political parties don't stand candidates in Northern Irish elections. The Conservative Party actually often does. I'm going to Northern Ireland in March, and we do have a Reform branch in Northern Ireland, so I'm going to go and meet the members there. But obviously we want to be a national political party. And actually I think Reform after May is likely to be the only genuinely national political party, because it's going to have a strong presence in Wales, in Scotland, whilst the Conservative Party and Labour are actually both doing extremely badly in both of those.
And the candidates, I have to say, the candidates that have been selected for Wales and Scotland were done with brilliance by the person that selected them, and I think they'll do very well. Tim's very angry. I'm warning you, Tim. Good morning.
Right.
Mr. Generic, this is Tim from Suffolk, a UK veteran who served during the Troubles. We understand you didn't vote yesterday, and therefore you are complicit with the voting out of the bill. You should be ashamed, sir.
Yeah, well, I can only say, I'm sorry, but I was what's called slipped, where you pre-arranged it because you had to do something else that I wasn't present. That's fairly normal.
You have fought for this,
but I have campaigned on it. I've been to meet veterans. I've done videos that have gone viral. I've been calling it out in Parliament for a very long time. So it is something.
Is there anything that could be done to stop this heinous bill going through, do you think, or not, because of the Labour majority?
Well, it doesn't seem as if Labour are willing to change course. It's certainly they've got a very big majority in the House of Commons, and so important though these votes seem, actually sadly they're much less so, because the Labour MPs just seem to troop through the division lobbies and support the government. Maybe in the House of Lords
that's true.
It will be possible. Some of the original amendments that created these provisions were put in the House of Lords because peers on a cross-party basis were willing to come together and to protect veterans. So, you know, nothing is over till it's over, and you can see with some of the things that have happened recently, like the family farm tax, which Labour have U-turned on.
Well, they've U-turned on everything.
Chagos, you know, who knows what will happen now that Trump has come out against it. So you should never give up. You've got to keep fighting. And certainly, if there were a Reform government after the next general election, or indeed a Conservative one, I am very confident that this will be unwound.
Phil says he'll vote for you if you do this. He says you can answer this. He says, next Prime Minister's question times, ask Starmer if he's going to put this through, surely he should start prosecuting Tony Blair, who took us to an illegal war. It's an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point.
Well, but the feelings of veterans are rightly very raw. I mean, when veterans saw Tony Blair send those letters of comfort to terrorists, you know, letters where they said to terrorists, don't worry, you'll never be prosecuted, you can just live about your life in complete comfort and certainty, to then think that the opposite is happening to our veterans, where they're either waiting every day, worried that a letter's going to drop on their mat, or now actually part of this group of veterans, which is, you know, tens of people, maybe even hundreds, who might be prosecuted. The disparity in treatment is just shameful.
We've got a question from Jeremy Kyle. I'm going to pay you a compliment, actually. I thought to go into Prime Minister's question times on day one and ask the question that you did took a lot of balls. What was it like, seriously? I think we're friends, just sitting there and looking across at ex-colleagues, ones you'd said quite a lot about. Was it a little bit tentative, the feelings initially?
A little bit. I mean, I do believe you've got to get stuck in. I mean, why are you in Parliament if you haven't got the strength of your convictions? And if I didn't believe in this, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. So I don't cower away. That's not my mindset. You just got to get in and get going. And it was. I stood up to ask the question. There was the sort of predictable heckling and jeering and so on. But actually, in fairness, as soon as people could see that I wasn't making some kind of cheap political point, but actually raising a serious case, people behaved very respectfully. And I wasn't quite sure what to ask, but one of the very last meetings I had when I was in the role as Shadow Justice Secretary was with the parents of a man who'd been a prison officer. He'd uncovered corruption in a prison, left the prison service, and then years later had been going to the gym in near Manchester, and the man who had previously been in prison, the ex-con, came up to him and shot him dead. And, you know, astonishing, incredibly brave prison officer who'd done the right thing, got killed and it's very rare for prison officers to get killed mercifully. We haven't had one for a very long time, and this guy was after he'd left the service. He had children, but because he had left the service,
no provision.
No one even bothered really to contact them, never gave them financial support. And, you know, I just think you hear all the time of people suing everyone, don't you?
Yeah.
Getting all these financial
for no
payouts
reason.
for, you know, for ludicrous things, you know, like tripping over or something. You get hundreds of thousands of pounds, and yet here's a man who's murdered for doing his job as a prison officer, and he's got young kids who weren't getting anything. So, in fairness to Starmer, he seemed to listen, and let's hope that that's resolved.
Chris on text, it didn't happen this week, but he says, will you be happy, you, Robert Jenrick, if a Labour defector joins Reform?
Yeah, I would be. I would be. I don't think Reform should be just a kind of something for people on the sort of centre-right. It should be for people from different perspectives and people who are coming in from outside of politics altogether. You know, business people, doctors, veterans,
But that's the big
farmers.
argument. And when you
that's
were
the
doing,
most exciting
well, when
thing,
you were
actually.
doing your thing last week and couldn't speak to anybody, the whole debate was, oh, come on, it's going to be the Tories 2.0, Jenrick's just after ambition, Rossendale wants a place in the cabinet. And I found myself saying, because you know me, I'm straight with you, I've asked you the questions already, that if you actually look at it and you go, right, so 17 million people who voted Tory in this country have gone, you've left us, actually. You're now not talking about the things that matter to me, like this is me as a voter. I've said this many times on the show. You're not talking about borders or law and order. You're not talking about low taxation. You've definitely, under Boris, gone to the centre. You're talking about net zero and stuff that, frankly, sorry, I'm not really interested in.
That's right, that's right.
And so if it's OK for millions of people to gravitate towards a party that represents them now, then surely it's OK for MPs to. I guess you were massively high profile because
obviously, if you're kind of the second or third most prominent person in a political party, it's obviously a very big thing to do.
Yeah.
But you've also got to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad's a very straight-talking man, and when we were debating this at home over Christmas, and I asked their opinion, he said to me over lunch on Boxing Day, if you were not involved in politics, you know, weren't an MP, didn't have all these friends and this residual loyalty, who would you vote for if there was a general election? And I said I'd vote for Reform.
You're done then.
And he said, well, be honest with yourself. If you are a Reform MP, be a Reform MP. If you think that's the best thing for your constituents, go and argue it.
Do you worry about that, by the way? They reported some heckling at your rally. Was that true?
Well, there was one bloke who heckled, but that was nothing to do with me. It was he was a man who wanted Lucy Letby to be released.
I interviewed her lawyer yesterday.
Totally, you know, whatever the rights and wrongs of that was a totally kind of separate.
There is the question.
But I'll just say this: on the kind of which, you know, whether you come from Labour or Conservative, there is a divide in British politics between left and right, obviously.
Yeah.
But the biggest divide today are between people who think the country is broken and needs radical change, and those people who don't and think that the country is basically all right and we can continue to fiddle around the edges. It's, you know, my dad was a gas fitter. It's basically the boiler's broken. Do you fix it up, patch it up, and hope for the best?
Or buy a new
one. Do you buy a new one, rip out the system,
because you know it's going to break
and
in
set
another
the house
6
up
months,
for a long time to come?
Yeah.
And I know where I stand on that debate.
This is a debate as well, and I'm glad John Carmichael sent this in, and it's a question I know you've been asked before. John is in Kent. Can you ask Robert Jenrick, if Reform are to be believed to be different to the established Labour, Conservative and Liberal parties, why is he not calling a by-election to get the people of Newark to say there's 3 years out for an election, he's the man we want? I think it's a perfectly viable question.
It's a very valid question. Look, in our system, you vote for individuals, though of course a lot of people do that through the lens of a party political badge. I get that, but it's not our system that you have to resign if you decide to change parties. I'd like to believe that the reason I won at the last general election against the odds, I'm the only, or was the only, Conservative MP in the whole of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire,
was because I was pretty independent-minded. I'd resigned from Rishi Sunak's cabinet. I was actually
I have to remember
I
that.
was putting
Said it
things
a lot
on my
for you last
leaflets,
week.
like leaving the ECHR, which were not Conservative Party policy, and a lot of people voted for me because of my own
Do you think
stance.
you win today as a Reform candidate?
Yeah, all the polls show that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, quickly
and,
before...
and I think the Tory party, it doesn't give me any pleasure to say this, but north of Watford Gap, you know,
Sound
there's
like me.
more chance of seeing a Dodo or a Woolly Mammoth than a Conservative MP.
There's no... The red wall has gone.
It's not even just the red wall, it's whatever you want to call it, you know, provincial Britain. It's everywhere other than pockets of affluence, you know, Kensington and Wimbledon. Everywhere is really going reform right now.
We've got a question on this. James is in Darlington. James, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Rob. So first of all, as a Reform member, welcome to Reform. Very happy to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
Well, I actually met you a few months ago in Westminster in October, and you endorsed me for my Uni Society election, so thank you very much. Now, I actually have a question about some of the strategic tension in the Reform Party, and particularly related to economic policy. Now, I'm from Darlington, which is a northern area, a northern seat in the country, and a lot of my friends and family are from, you know, traditionally red wall areas. So since the general election, I've noticed that a lot of our growth has come in those red wall areas. I think before the general election, we tended to do best in the more affluent southeastern areas. I think that's why we got away with most of our economic policy being a bit more Thatcherite. However, I think now most of the voters that we've seen coming across are people who rely on and actively support quite a strong social safety net. I mean, I myself, my family, we've relied on the NHS and many of our public services quite heavily for a long time. But at the same time, many people who I speak to are expressing concern that some of the reform defectors that we've had recently are the more traditionally right-wing ideological Thatcherite people. So I'm wondering, how are we going to be able to bridge that gap between the economic ideologies of the MPs and the leading figures in the party and our new voter base in a way that feels both...
You might need to be a politician. That's the longest bloody question I've ever heard.
Well, it's a
Good one, though. No, he's right.
It's a very smart question, though, and it's one that a lot of people are thinking about. I think Reform will have a distinct economic policy to the Conservative Party. It's not just going to be reheated Thatcherism. It's got to be something that is relevant to the modern era, and that will mean, for example, reindustrialisation.
Yeah.
You know, if you'd asked me 10 or 15 years ago, should the state be playing a role in trying to ensure that certain industries like steel have a future in this country, I might have said no. Like a lot of people, they would have said, well, I don't believe in subsidy, picking winners, industrial policy. But today, it feels to me there's a very strong argument for doing that carefully. You've got rising China. I want us to be able to have car manufacturing, steel, chemicals, glass, ceramics in this country, not just see all of these jobs fade away, millions of good jobs and important industries to the future of the country. If you asked me today, would it be sensible for the state to take a stake in an important company like Rolls-Royce, if that meant that that company could then go on and build new nuclear reactors at pace across the country and ensure we have energy security? I'd say, well, I would definitely consider that. There may be a strong argument for that. And these are the sorts of things that the Conservative Party does not say today, but which I think will be distinct to Reform and are undoubtedly the right way to manage the economy going forwards. We're not going to be a party of welfarism. You know, there's this debate at the moment where some people lazily say, oh, well, Reform just want to splash the cash on welfare. That's not right, and it will never be right. You know, we're the party of alarm clock Britain. We're a party of people getting up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, getting the kids ready to school, going to work, and we must be on their side, not on the side of scroungers and people who aren't making responsible decisions.
Just very quickly, because we've loads, we've got to go to a break.
And it's a misnomer to think that, you know, the kind of voters that Reform are attracting want that.
No,
not at all.
No.
Not at all.
Well, one of the things that the
people who see
Tories,
it the most.
Mel Stride said it this morning, and I know you criticised him. He said it this morning just briefly. He said that we're all costed. We're going to save £47 billion in the next election if we're elected, and that's going to pay off the national debt, 23 billion of it. The biggest criticism, he says, of Reform is that it's just they throw things out there. We're going to challenge this, we're going to do that, but it's not costed. What's your answer to that?
Complete BS. Look, Firstly, that's not correct. All £47 billion, that's just complete back of a fag packet stuff. Mel Stride was the Work and Pension Secretary. If you could find these savings today, why didn't he find them a year or two ago when he actually had the job? I mean, come on, he's taking us for fools. But what I want to ensure is that no one could even credibly make that argument in a month or two's time. That absolutely everything that Nigel, Zia, Richard, myself, the team in Reform say and do is serious, credible, detailed, and so that argument completely falls away.
Brilliant. OK, Robert Jenrick is here. He'll take your questions. 87222 0344 499 1000. Back in 3.
No more distractions.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having elections.
I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to Reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, Andrew, you've got to do this to me.
So you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about wasting...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:30. Ring Rob is on 8344. What is it? 0344.
You should know that,
do you know what's the matter with me? 499
Even I know that.
Thanks, mate. Ross is in Leeds. Question for Robert Jenrick. I'm a British Jew. Currently in Israel because the UK is unsafe for me and my like. What realistically can you and Reform do now to reverse the intolerable anti-Semitism in every aspect of British life? Great question.
Brilliant question. You may know this is personal to me. My wife is Jewish, so it matters to me as it matters to everybody in the country. We've got to have a zero tolerance attitude to anti-Semitism, and that means kicking out anybody who displays these attitudes, revoking visas of people who are here and are marching on the streets, banning some of these rallies when they turn from legitimate protest into extremism, getting rid of hate preachers in mosques who are spreading this kind of message, taking things to a stage which people just haven't done, to be honest, in recent years. Look, everybody cares about this. We hear warm words from all of our prime ministers, and I don't doubt their sincerity. But clearly now it's time for actual action.
We don't hear warm words from this current Prime Minister because he's terrified about alienating the Muslim vote. Let's have it absolutely straight. I've got Jewish friends. I think it's disgusting. It's not a level playing field, and it embarrasses me enormously.
It is.
Friends of mine's
and look, it's not
can't go on the bus in their blazer.
People say it's anti-Israel or anti-Jewish. It's anti-British.
Absolutely,
it should
right.
matter to all of us.
Spot on. Let's go to Jason in Suffolk. Jason, we've got to be really quick. You're through to Robert Jenrick. Good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Morning, Robert. I'll just make a quick point then. The Chinese mega embassy, Robert, they've even said that the fire service can't go in if there's a fire. No Brits will be allowed in whatsoever. What's your opinion?
Absolutely terrible. We're in fact, in the studio we can almost see it across the river from here. I went to a protest there last year and, stood with the campaigners. It's a complete disgrace that we've given one of the most prominent sites in the City of London, beside the Tower of London, most importantly a site that sits on top of very sensitive cables, to the Chinese, an adversary of ours.
Is he in their pocket, do you think, Starmer? Because you'd have to look at it and go, what the hell's going on here?
Well, he's kowtowing to them in the hope that it will lead to some better trading relations. And
but why don't you make it easier to trade in your own country, Starmer?
But also, the Chinese respond to strength. Kowtowing is not the way, actually, to build relations with them. We're going to end up with now the biggest spy hub in Europe in the most prominent location you can imagine.
Would Reform reverse that?
Well, I don't think that's easy once they've moved in. I mean, by the time of the next general election, it will be a functioning Chinese embassy, I'm afraid.
Which is an extraordinary thing. Voice note, Roger, question for Robert Jenrick.
Good morning, Jezza. It's Roger at the roadside here. This is a question for Jenrick, if I may. It's just a quick one. Look, Jezza mentioned this earlier this morning. At what point does the actions of the Labour government, and especially of Sir Keir Starmer, the former Dalek of Doctor Who, at what point does his actions and the things that he has put in place become clear treason?
It's interesting.
Yeah. Look, I don't know whether Keir Starmer is a good man or a bad man. I think he's fundamentally unsuited to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
But I do question him these days when I hear things like giving away the Chagos Islands to an ally of China, paying billions of pounds for the privilege. Is that the action to somebody who is a patriotic Brit who's putting the security interests of our country first? Taking away immunity from prosecution of veterans who fought in Northern Ireland. Is that the action of someone who's patriotic, always putting our national security first? It just seems time and again, the thing that Keir Starmer really prizes is this vision that he has of himself as a human rights lawyer, lauded by the legal community, somebody who can be respectable in North London dinner parties and on the international stage after he leaves.
Or is he
office.
feathering his own nest for when it all finishes and he can go back to being a human rights lawyer because he's given all his job
what people
to
just
mates.
want is a Prime Minister and a government that always puts the interest of the British people first, and frankly don't give a damn about how they're viewed at Davos or international circus, or are willing to go to these things and stick it to the global elite rather than trying to suck up to them.
Couldn't agree more. Dave, how is he and Reform, this is you, Robert Jenrick, going to deal with the anti-Brexit ECHR supporting woke net zero liberals that prevented, frankly, the Tories doing anything that they said they would do for 14 years? This is a question I keep putting to Tyson Farage because they say we'll take on the blob, and yet every single politician we meet says, yeah, but they're entrenched. Nigel and Richard would say, well, get rid of them. Is that possible? Do you believe? You've worked in government.
Yeah, look, I think we're going to have to use the years ahead wisely to plan exactly how we can do this, but it's going to require reform of the civil service so it's smaller, more accountable, prizes meritocracy over diversity, and ministers can actually get on and do the job. That means fewer quangos. It means being able to hire and fire people when they're failing or succeeding. And it's got to mean that ministers are in the driving seat, accountable to Parliament and ultimately to the people. We can't do what Labour did, which is just waste their time in opposition. We've got to use it very wisely, prepare detailed plans as to how you actually do these things so we can get on and do the job. Because my great fear for the country, and it was one of the things that motivated me to join Reform, is that you have a failing Conservative government, people vote for change, they get Labour. Labour is even worse. And as I think will happen at the next general election, people vote for change again, they get, say, a Reform government. That government cannot let people down.
No.
If it does,
but it needs more than 5 years. But it's not going to happen in 5 years. Here's a question. Actually, we're going to go to a call in Pulborough, lovely part of West Sussex. Guy Harwood, the trainer, the trainer used to live there. Let's go to John. John, you're through to Robert Jenrick. A very good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. This is John from Sussex. My question relates to funding the BBC. I'm a person who chooses not to have a BBC licence because I don't wish the money to go to the BBC, and instead I watch YouTube. for which I pay on YouTube Prime. I'm concerned to hear yesterday that the government are in negotiation with the BBC with a view to bringing YouTube within the remit of the BBC, so that people like me will be forced to fund the BBC with criminal sanctions. I'd like to know what reforms policy towards that will be.
Yeah, very interesting question. Well, I'm completely opposed to that. You know, if you want to get your media on YouTube or online, you shouldn't have to be buying a TV license to do that. And there are millions of people in the same situation as you are, particularly younger people. I mean, I've got 3 daughters who are teenagers.
My kids don't watch television.
They don't watch any TV.
Of course they don't.
They only know a handful of TV shows. They watch, you know, Traitors or Strictly, but barring the big shows, everything they do is on YouTube,
news, everything.
TikTok,
it's all absolutely.
Instagram. They don't even touch the BBC, and that's why, you know, whatever you feel about the BBC, and I do think it's institutionally biased, I struggle to see how the licence fee can be sustainable, because there's an entire generation of people who don't use it.
And you've got to be in a competitive marketplace. People, understandably, Rob, want value for money, and they look at the BBC and they go, "Well, you're just taking that money. The content's not great. It's institutionally
it should
biased.
stand on
we
its
should be able to
own.
make our own
stand on
choices."
its own 2 feet, and if people want to watch it, then they want to subscribe to it.
Let's go to Nick. He's got a voice note question. Morning, Nick.
Hi, Roberts. After your trip to Birmingham, where you caused all that trouble by saying you didn't see a white face, are you concerned about the rate of demographic change that's happening in the UK? And if you are, how do you square that with Richard Tice and Nigel Farage, or Richard Tice specifically, who said he's not bothered about the rate of demographic change? So how will you address that issue?
Good question. Well, look, firstly, I am very worried about the pace of change in the country, as millions of people are. You just cannot successfully integrate the number of people who've come into the UK in recent years. And it's meant that in some parts of the country, particularly in pockets of our big cities, the country is almost unrecognisable from what it was like just a
What's wrong
decade
with saying the
or
truth?
so
That
ago.
is the truth.
That's just the truth. That's how people feel. And you've got communities where English is not as widely spoken as it should be, where people are electing now Gaza independent MPs, so essentially voting along religious lines.
Not even talking about the local community that they're
you've got
standing in.
flags of Gaza and Pakistan flying more than flags of St. George or the Union, and that isn't the kind of country I want to live in. I want to live in a country which is ethnically diverse, but which is very well integrated and under one country under one flag. I grew up in Wolverhampton, which at the time was probably the most diverse city in the country. And yeah, there were challenges. There was racism, and there was a history of quite serious racial conflict in the black country in the 70s and the 80s. But there weren't sections of the city which were, this is the Hindu section, this is the Muslim section, this is the kind of the Christian section, or the white people live in this suburb or that. People, broadly speaking, lived side by side, and that's the kind of country that I want to live in, where, it's not about skin colour, it's not about faith, but we're living in well-integrated communities alongside each other, and we've got to fight against this growing ghettoisation of communities that we see right now.
Loads of questions. Paul Simon, you can call me Al, that was ridiculous. I really want Reform and Rob to work and make Britain proud, but I really need to hear between now and the next election how they're going to do it. How radical are you going to be compared to the current establishment? How long is it going to take? I know you're not Donald Trump, but things surely need to be done fast in this country. I think it's a great point.
They do. Look, the big dividing line is people who want radical change in this country, or people who just want to continue with the status quo. And when I said on Thursday that Britain was broken, I was amazed that you then had Kemi Badenoch come out and say she didn't think Britain was broken. Well, most people in my experience think that Britain is broken. They think things are a bit of a mess. They see living standards are stagnating, the bills keep going up, they are worried about immigration, the kids can't get on the housing ladder, the potholes on the roads, you name it. They want to see big change in the country, and that is what Reform has got to stand for. It's got to reassure people that it's got a team that's able to deliver that, a strong team, not just Nigel. Obviously, he is the leader of the party, but alongside him, there's got to be people who you can believe would be the cabinet of this country. And then you've got to have a set of serious, detailed plans so that everyone can think, well, we can trust these guys with the economy, with our pensions, our savings, our small business, with the NHS. That's a big piece of work to be done in the months ahead.
This is a question from me, and you don't have to answer it. When you came over, I know it was all a bit quick and probably quick that it was going to happen. Did you have any promises about future roles?
No. I mean, we talked about things that I'm personally interested in, but there were no promises.
OK. Question from Rob. Smile. Does he know yet who grassed him out to Kemi?
I do. It was. I'm not going to name names. Look, it's neither here nor there. It's a very junior person who worked for Kemi, who came into my office and nicked a speech that I'd written off my desk and handed it to her. But that's life. I mean, people keep saying to me, "Oh, you should name this person." I'm not going to make someone. I don't want some kid, his name to be on Google in years to come as somebody who stole something.
You're going to stop leaving paper around now? Is that?
Well, it wasn't left on a photocopier. I can tell you that. But anyway,
listen, the world's changed.
It meant to happen a day or two sooner than it would have done otherwise. But it's neither here nor there.
Mike has just woken up in Milton Keynes, and this will prove what a good politician Rob is. Just woken up. What does Rob think about Nigel Farage's MP code of conduct mishaps, which have come out this morning? He's missed some expenses and stuff. Do you think this will hurt Reform UK?
No, not really. Look, you've got. It was an innocent mistake as far as I don't know the whole details, but it sounds like you have to record everything quite rightly in the register of members' interests, and it sounds like he either forgot or was a little late.
Is there more scrutiny on Reform MPs, do you think, because the establishment
I'm sure there
is concerned?
I'm sure there's a lot more scrutiny, absolutely, and not just on the MPs, but on the councillors as well. There's all these stories about Reform councils, but look. I was a local government secretary. There are good and bad councils and councils of all political persuasions, and I've seen no evidence that Reform councils are any worse than others. In fact, hopefully they'll be considerably better.
Can I say, mate, total respect. I know last week you had loads to do and it was very busy, but the Ring Rob feature really works, and I think it's great for a politician, a high-ranking politician, to be able to answer questions directly, because nobody else really does that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Back in a couple of weeks.
I'd be delighted.
Ring Rob, a regular feature. I really, listen, and I'm telling you this, and you can all have a go at me. I don't care. I'm too old in the tooth. There are not many politicians who would sit here for 45 minutes and take questions they know nothing about off the hoof. So respect to Rob, and he will be back very soon. Watch him go. 9:45. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 9:45. We're live across the UK. It's Talk Breakfast. The incredible Julia Hartley-Brewer here from 10. Last week she interviewed Robert Jenrick. This morning she's got the leader of Her Majesty's Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, will be here, on Zoom I think, but live with Julia from 10 o'clock. So do not seriously miss that. We give all sides of the coin. London is where we broadcast from. I'm at pains to always say we should think outside of the M25, but there is a lady whose cause is close to many people's hearts. We say a very good morning to, please God, the next Mayor of London, Layla Cunningham. Hello.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm all right. Tell me to mind my own beeswax. So I read something on your Instagram last night that the left-wing press are already attacking your family on a personal level, which tells me everything about how terrified the establishment is in London already about you.
Yeah, so my mum owns a small hotel, a B&B in Bayswater. She's owned it for decades. And they're trying to insinuate that it's a migrant hotel. I had someone some random person from Advance attend the hotel yesterday and says she spoke to people. She didn't speak to anyone. It's never, ever been a migrant hotel. It's a cheap B&B in the centre of London from Hyde Park. And, you know, my mum was crying yesterday because she's like, you know, I came to this country with nothing. I worked 6 jobs. I never depended on the government. And I bought this, and it's my business. Why are they attacking me and making up stories?
Let me ask you a question. Just, I haven't been in politics, but I've been in the media for many, many years, and I've had a couple of tsunamis. Are you ready for what's coming your way? Because the establishment, the press, and other politicians will do exactly what you've experienced because they'll see you as a threat. 1,000,000%.
I'm ready. It's just, and I don't mind, attack me as much as you want. It is harder, admittedly, when they go after my mum.
Of course.
Who's 92.
That's awful.
You know, she's absolutely done nothing. Insinuating that, number one, there's crime in the hotel, which there isn't. And then insinuating completely wrongly that it's a migrant hotel and making up lies about it and sending people to it to make up lies.
I've always been told that the truth ultimately comes out. Layla, we know the fight starts in London now, and there's a lot of issues in London that you're going to fight on. But just generally, a couple of things that I wanted to touch upon today. Actually, not Trump and not Greenland. I need to ask you about the Chinese embassy. I haven't met anybody who has any idea other than this is a horrendous thing. It's because Starmer's in the pocket of the Chinese and after a trade deal. We have allowed in this city the biggest embassy in Western Europe, and even our own security forces are saying that this is a nightmare. Outrageous, Layla.
It's outrageous, and it shows that actually, I don't think Keir Starmer is worried about our security. He's so worried about buying. This is after, by the way, he let 2 Chinese spies go almost and get away with it. He did a trip to Beijing, and now he's allowing this. I mean, he obviously doesn't care for British security.
And I presume if you became the Mayor of London, there'd be nothing you could do about it. Robert Jenrick was just saying this could likely pass. Would the Mayor of London have any control over anything like this or not?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether... I know that the Mayor of London can call in big developments and refuse it, but I don't know if diplomatic relations or diplomatic decisions fall down to central government, which could be what Rob is relating to. But I mean, you know, the fact that he supports it, it shows exactly where his priorities lie. It is not with Britain's security, but with Beijing and China. How could it be any other way? Also, don't forget, they're deindustrializing our country to such a rapid extent, and we're becoming reliant on China for everything, not just
windmills, wind farms,
wind farms, you know, medication, everything in our supply chain that. Effectively, if China decided to stop it all, it would be a disaster for this country. They have made us solely reliant on a country that wants to destroy us.
I'm going to read this out with a straight face. It's exclusive breaking news, Layla Cunningham. Don't laugh. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has just said that it's a good thing that yesterday the threat of tariffs against the United Kingdom were lifted to now, he says, start the hard yards of finding a way forward on the security in the Arctic. He spoke to 17 local residents in a Hertfordshire village hall.
Wow.
I mean, honestly, you think of Trump in Davos and you think of Starmer in front of 20 people at a Hertfordshire village hall. Just out of interest, we haven't got long, do you think Starmer was strong, or do you think Trump played everybody as he always does, which is make threats, get the deal and get back on Air Force One? What's your take on yesterday?
I think that's Trump's modus, right? Yeah. That's what he does. He makes an impossible demand, and it brings people to the table. He did that with the international tariffs, and people seem to fall for it. That's what he does. And listen, I think we have to remember that even though we're all in a NATO alliance, every country is there for itself. And, you know, you can disagree with friends, but still be allies.
And have the strength to tell them. 2 things I wanted to put to you. I haven't got a lot of time. I know you're a mum. I've got 6, you've got more. There's a report out today which has caused great consternation, quite rightly too. 1 in 4 school starters are still in nappies because parents don't think toilet training is their job. They go to school having not had their teeth cleaned, without food, etc., etc. Some pupils try to swipe on books because they're so used to being put in front of a phone or a laptop. Education. I mean, listen, it's my bugbear. What the hell is happening to parenting in London and in the United Kingdom? Disgraceful.
Honestly, I've never seen anyone with that kind of behaviour. Have you?
Yes.
That's pretty extreme.
I promise you it's prevalent. If you go and ask private schools, comprehensive schools, all sorts of schools, there's an increasing number of kids who do not know how to clean their teeth, who come to school having not had clean clothes or a wash or food, and kids in nappies still aged. This is genuinely true. This will be happening in London. The other thing that I should tell you about, which is massive today, which will definitely be in London, is this heinous rule by law that the Labour government's bringing in to do bad by our veterans. I'm sure you've seen this morning.
Oh, yeah.
This is. I mean, in London there'll be veterans on the streets and illegal migrants in hotels, for Christ's sake.
It's interesting you say that, because I was actually speaking to someone. My sister met someone in India actually, and he has a property, and he was offered to house. He was offered 20% more than the going rate to house illegal migrants in his property. And he said, I had to turn it down because I said I couldn't fathom how a government would leave British people homeless on the streets, but be housing illegal migrants in a hotel. He said, I just couldn't understand how a government could do that. And he said no.
It's like we're saying, thank you so much for everything you've done for our country. We're going to give immunity to the IRA who used to blow people up. You might be 70 living either on the streets or on a crap pension. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to pursue you. Forget you've got PTSD and followed rules. And somebody said earlier on, Layla, we should be going after Tony Blair and Prince Harry then, shouldn't we, if you go along that road?
Veterans should be treated as kings. You know, we promised them immunity. And basically, like you said, we're telling them, if you fought for this country, you definitely shouldn't have to fight it again in court. Labour's putting terrorists above troops.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
It beggars, you know, these men served under our flag. They served under orders. They risked their lives. They deserve gratitude, not a witch hunt.
It's unbelievable. And then you look at...
what kind of country are we if we do this?
Well, what country have we become where we give away sovereign land and money? We don't. The whole thing is wrong. We seem to favour illegal migrants, other countries, any people who've committed crime instead of victims or people who've grafted. I don't understand it. That's what needs changing, right?
You know, yesterday I was on a panel for the grooming gangs, and one of the grooming gang victims was there. It was part of Prosperity think tank, and she was telling us she couldn't even get mental health from the NHS. That's how she was let down. She had to pay for it privately. And it was harrowing to hear how she was let down by the state. And all I could think of was exactly what you said. Where is the state when our most vulnerable, or those that risk their lives for us? What kind of state are we if we don't stand up for these people?
Completely agree. Love having you on. Thank you as ever, Layla Cunningham, the next Mayor of London. Good morning, Joe.
In regard to Robert saying there's two types of people, some that think Britain isn't broken and some that think Britain is broken, I think he's wrong there. I think we've got two types of people. You've got the type of people that are happy to be fed absolute and utter nonsense day in, day out, expecting a different result every time, and it never happens. And you've got the other people that are wanting people that talk straight to them, tell them what they're going to do, get in power and actually do it. And that's a big change this country needs. And I hope Robert could go forward and work with that and actually do it.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 2 minutes to 10. We're almost done for Thursday, and the legend that is Julia Hartley-Brewer is here with the leader of Her Majesty's opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah, you've had the man who wanted to be the leader. Yeah, they managed not to. No, she's sadly not in the studio. Yeah, Kemi Badenoch. We've already established, apparently, all these women journalists apparently think that mispronouncing someone's name is sexist.
Don't get me on that. That is ludicrous.
I genuinely... Women, ladies, for the love of God, just because someone doesn't like someone or someone insults someone or criticises someone doesn't mean it's sexist. Get over yourselves and stop playing victim, because it's getting really boring on behalf of women who don't play that card.
I don't know what to say.
It does my head in.
I agree with you, mate. If that's the best you can ask a man who's just defected, then you're not doing your job
I'm genuinely
correctly.
embarrassed for Magenta for doing that. But anyway, Kemi Badenoch is going to be here in just a few moments. So we've also got Jake Wallace-Simons here to talk about all the big foreign affairs. And what the hell